Right. Well, and if you came to work and the power is back on, you could see it.
Okay. Dan, ready?
Well, if that's not,
Okay. Being 5 o'clock, we're going to call the Village Board of Oregon meeting to order for Monday, December 6th, 2021. Candy, could you take roll for us, please?
Fashion,
Here.
Elo,
Here.
Balik,
Here.
Glish,
Here.
Peterson,
Here.
Stitch,
Here.
and Wunsch.
Here.
All right. Jenny?
I need to call the library board meeting to order. Could I have a roll call, please?
Fashion,
Here.
Bergstrom,
Here.
Goblin,
Here.
Nelson,
Here.
Santuli Shuda,
Here.
Severson, and Stata.
Here.
Okay. All right, we're on to number 5, which is public appearances. This is public comment. This part of the agenda allows members of the public to provide information to the village board, including both items on and off the agenda. I know Arland has requested to be first. He has to leave. So, Arland, if you want to come up, state your name and address for us. You have 3 minutes.
you have a full room, so we'll try and keep it at less than that. I'm Arlen Kai, 5685 Lincoln Road, Oregon. And I'm here to be supporting a downtown location for the library. One, it is the downtown area is a cultural center of our village. It is also one of our economic centers of the village. That combination continues to push me to say, work at getting the downtown location. This is at least a 50-year decision that you're going to be making when you start picking a location. 50 years. Why only 50? Well, 2070? 2070? That's too far away to worry about. But let's think back to 1971, 50 years back. The library that you're looking at was up in the clerk's office. That's when we were here as a young family coming in, visiting our library upstairs. That was it. Small room, but that was it. We have made a number of good enough, almost good enough, maybe decisions over that 50 years. The library moved from here to the Paul's Grocery Store. Paul's Grocery Store? That is now the senior center. So that metal building, again, a half good building, half good location, but it didn't last. Not only outgrowing, but it's not that good of a facility. Then we built the current library, which was too small, again, a forced decision, and almost a hostile set of decisions at the time to be building that. Too quick, too small. It was too small from the day it opened. Those good enough decisions have come back to haunt us, and so we don't want you to be making that decision too fast. There's a lot of things to be going on, a lot of things to be considering. Yes, there are site issues. Many of them I have pointed out to, as a member of the steering committee and the library board, to the library. As an architect, I saw that there were shortcomings, but I also saw that there were design options that can be made. You can challenge your architect to be doing something that can be working on that north site, or you can be looking at other sites downtown. There's going to be a challenge, and I think you need to be looking forward to making that challenge so that this decision, which is going to last a minimum of 50 years, and hopefully 100. 71, when we moved here, the population of the village was 2,500. 25 years later, it was 5,000. Now, we're over 10,000. A fourfold increase in that short 50 years. Fourfold. You mean we might be 40,000 in 50 years? That's very real. It's very possible. Make this decision carefully because this library is going to have to serve a very large community. Think carefully,
Okay.
take your time.
Thank you.
Don't rush to it.
Thank you, Arlen. All right. Somebody else? Judy?
Well, I was going to sit here and be quiet, but you know me, I have to make sure that I get my opinion in here. So I'm talking about the library also. We do need to slow down and we have to take a step back. Do you know this is the biggest expense the village has ever done? $10 million. And you know, we paid, or the village paid $1 million, a little less than $1 million, to get that lot to build downtown. So now we're already at 11 million. You know, our taxpayers have to look at that. And we want to make sure that we help them. We do not have large businesses in Orion like other communities. And I think that's where we're looking at and saying, hey, where's the tax base? It's all in residential. We don't have that, so we have to build the Southeast Business Park yet. But we don't have those large businesses to support, like Verona has Epic. We don't have an Epic. We don't have those businesses, so we can't put it all on our residents. We want to build a new senior center. We want the new school. We want the fire station, and what else? The list goes on and on. So as a financial looking at some of this stuff, I'm thinking, take your time, slow down, slow down. And you know, we started out with 2.8 acres a couple of years ago. And then we got an architect, now they're telling us 4 acres? Build what we have. And then you know what, something, you know, like the buildings around it, there's also business or other houses that the village could buy and add on when we needed to. I mean, this lot, I think, is a wonderful lot downtown here. And it really gives a lot. And then we're building workforce development houses. Where are we building them? Out on the southeast side. Where do we want to put the library? On the west side. What? How can those people get to the library? Let's keep it downtown. We want to make sure that the library is used by the people that are going to be in the workforce development projects. So let's think about this and back up a little bit. So, you know, to the village board, remember, your taxpayers voted for you, and they want you to be in the seats you're in. The listening sessions that were done, 80% wanted downtown. So think about that. Who says you can't have 3 stories? You know, maybe we need a new architect. Maybe the architect just has to have a challenge and look at it again. We don't know. So I think there's a lot of opportunity and a lot of challenges at that property, but I think it can be done. So think about what can go on. And this is the most expensive and biggest project the village has done. So let's make it work. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. All right, next.
My name is Cindy Helmer. I live at the corner on 151 West Grove Street, which is on the corner of Grove and Market Street. I agree we need to slow down, but we also need to have the best money, or spend our money in the best way possible. From what I'm gathering, this lot on the north side of town is going to cost quite a bit more in order to get it ready to build on. The 3-story was discussed 2.5 years ago, or closer to 3 probably, of how it was going to affect the neighbors and not having sunshine. And I agree we need to slow down. I need, excuse me, that we have spent a lot of money on it already, but it's just like, this is not a good fit. We're gonna end up losing part of the size of the library. You want a long-term effect of 50 years. The town is growing. In 50 years' time, the size of I may be wrong, but the town is getting bigger, it's not getting smaller. And I think it's just going to affect the whole neighborhood myself, but that is my opinion on it. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you. All right, who next? Teresa?
Hi, I'm Teresa Nelson, 245 Drumlin Circle, and I'm here representing the Oregon Nature Alliance. And the Oregon Nature Alliance has been providing input on the plans for the west side of Keller Alpine Meadows Park since conceptual plans were presented in January of this year. And a lot has happened since then. Whether the proposal was sports fields or housing or the library, our stance has remained the same. This is far too valuable of a natural resource to allow any further development. Because all development has negative impacts on natural areas, from increased nutrients from fertilization runoff, to increased water volume from impervious surfaces, to decreased and degraded habitat. These are the consequences of development. This is not an opinion, this is a fact. And from the recent wetland delineation, we can see just how close the proposed library development would be to the existing wetlands, and even closer to areas that were likely wetlands before the area was farmed a really long time ago. If the library is going to be truly sustainable, then an honest conversation based on science, not opinion, about the environmental impacts this library would have on the park area needs to happen. To assist in this conversation, the Oregon Nature Alliance has partnered with a professional ecologist with more than 40 years of experience in ecological restoration to evaluate the ecological, wildlife, and climate mitigation value the park area provides our community. After review of the feedback from the listening sessions, it's clear that the majority, around at least 75% of the people who provided comments, do not want to see the library in the park. And many of those same people want to see the area preserved and restored, as was also shown by the support for our Oregon Conservancy Vision Map. The Oregon Nature Alliance formed to give a voice to those in our village who are concerned about the environmental legacy we will leave for future generations. I trust our voices are being heard.
Thank you. All right, who wants to be next? Ray, do you want to come up? You want to speak, Ray?
No.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else? Susan? No?
I think
Okay, yep, we got, okay. All right, anybody else want to speak? Otherwise, we'll move on to some discussion here. Yeah,
if you have somebody that had to step out, I'd like you to read your comments.
yes, please.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
All right, this is from Joe Tempty at 294 North Main Street. And her comments are, she would like to encourage the use of the existing library area for the new facility. Building the new library as a mixed-use space downtown would preserve the only in-village accessible natural space, Keller Alpine Meadow Park and adjacent parks, contribute to the revitalization of the downtown area. As a small business owner, she would like to see development that draws visitors to the downtown area. Contribute to solutions for affordable housing within walking distance of many centralized village amenities. Building a mixed-use facility may also provide opportunities for partnerships and funding for the project. And then she also provided a document called The New Chapter, Cities Are Tackling the Housing Crunch by Building Above the Library. So I'm going to pass this around to the board.
Okay,
And it'll also be part of the packet.
okay. All right, Candy, thank you. All right, I guess we're ready to go to 6 is business. Items are for discussion, possible action. 6A is the new library project. Review and discuss recent listening session and public comment feedback. Review and discuss potential sites and site conditions and determine next steps. Jenny, do you guys want to start or?
Sure. We basically just have kind of a statement from our last library board meeting that I was asked to share, and then we can go have discussion, whatever.
Okay, do you want to read? Yeah.
Sure, it's kind of long, I apologize, I've started writing speeches for a living now, it's, fantastic, let me tell you.
Any of this part of the packet?
No.
Okay. I
Sorry.
just want to make sure. No problem.
So it sort of is, there's a list of needs that was attached in the packet, and it kind of just expounds on those, so. So this is kind of the statement from the library board in a speech form, so I apologize. I want to start off by saying thank you to many people. Thank you to the community members that took time out of their schedules to share feedback with us through the listening sessions, emails, and conversations. Thank you to the village and library board members that have been having these community conversations, reading these emails, and listening to our village. Thank you to the library and village staff who coordinated the sessions, took detailed notes, and were available to answer all sorts of questions. And lastly, I'd like to thank OCA Media for their coverage of all the listening sessions and meetings. The library board met on December 1st to discuss what they heard at the listening sessions and out in the community, to ask clarifying questions, and to discuss the needs and priorities of the library. The discussions we had reaffirmed the vision of the library that was created in 2019 through many hours of discussion and community engagement. I'd like to take a minute to expound on the vision and needs of the library further than the OPN summary that was provided in the packet. I believe that the library is a verb. It's the action of serving the community by providing book selection services, teaching people to use Microsoft Word or Excel, helping someone fill out a job application or a resume, showing someone how to research their genealogy, teaching kids how to pick out a book, cherishing some quiet time, reading in a safe space. It's the work the librarians do in the community, from traveling to daycares to provide book boxes and story time, to planning joint events with the youth center, or teaming up with the Anderson Farm to install story walks to be enjoyed by campus space for the librarians to plan and organize the next exciting programs. Including in the packets were some pictures that I took at the current library. If you guys get a chance to review them, I know sometimes people aren't necessarily going to the library right now, they're just picking up their books outside, which is kind of a cool feature, but in the pictures you can see the top shelves filled with tubs of material for Miss Kelly to take whatever building she's hosting events for at the day. You can see your shared office full of materials that don't have a storage closet to be housed in. You can see the Sue Ames room, the only meeting room in the library, being used for the pages to be able to have a 4-foot workspace to perform their jobs. You can see a small bench for the children's area for kids to sit and explore their books, the only space available that's not shelving or work area. Story time is currently being held all over Oregon, wherever Kelly can share space. It's been at the senior center where the kids have shared space with senior Zumba. It's been at the school district main office where students have classes during story time. None of these locations allow for the love of books everyone wants to instill in future generations. When events like this are held at the library, kids get to hear a book read to them and then go explore the library and pick out their own selections. When they're held off-site, this is far less likely to happen. We are blessed in Oregon with librarians who are passionate about serving the community. In 2019, our librarians reached 17,457 patrons, more than the population of Oregon, who attended 528 programs held by the library. They're constantly coming up with ways to reach out to underserved people. They coordinate with the senior center and the youth center. They deliver books to homebound adults. They have discussion groups with teenagers to understand how better provide service to a group of young people stuck between being a kid and an adult. There's so many ideas that given the right amount of space and staffing, they'd be able to implement that they could never do in their current location. I gave the example at the library board meeting of being able to provide space for telemedicine appointments in a planned study rooms. I heard about this at a healthcare construction conference I went to last summer. Libraries have reliable internet that many people don't have access to. By coordinating with healthcare partners, there's an opportunity to use the library's internet and computers to allow seniors or people with limited transportation the ability to talk to their doctors at the library. The presentation also discussed how a large amount of Google searches at libraries are medical terms. People's loved ones had a scary diagnosis or they personally have symptoms of something and use the computers to try to figure out what's wrong. The presentation discussed healthcare organizations teaming up with libraries to either have medical professionals come help people with researching or personally discussing diagnosis with patrons, or teaming up to teach the librarians where to find reliable internet sites to help people with those searches. We have such great medical care in Dane County. I can only imagine with the new private spaces at the library how we could provide similar resources to Oregon. These are just some examples of new and different ideas of how the library, the verb, can better serve if given the right-sized building, a noun. There's some specific needs that the library board set out at the meeting last Wednesday. They are a 2 or 1-story building, a total space of 33,000 square feet, adequate ventilation to meet the recommendations related to COVID. We can't know what the next major outbreak may be, but we believe we should learn from the current research and make sure the new library has more than a residential HVAC system and can provide the recommended air changes and filtering. Seating for community members of all ages, more solid seating for people that struggle to get up and down, or squishy beanbag chairs for kids to hang out and play Pokemon. Programming spaces. These are spaces to house quilting classes, story and toddler time, moms meetup groups, homeschool educational classes, author presentations, book clubs, a more formal meeting location for people that run home businesses, a sensory room for kids that need it, a place to house 200 kids at a summer reading program, beer brewing presentations, and more. Adequate collection space. Not just space for books, but the Eureka collections with telescopes and cake pans and bug houses, the seed library, or reading care packs. Study rooms that provide quiet spaces for learning or working. Access to computers for people to fill out job applications or perform school research. Staff workspace, including storage. In a recent exit review, one of our comments was that the person that was leaving was excited not to have to work in a hallway. We're not only a provider of service to the community, we're an employer. We should be able to provide adequate workspace for our employees. Separate areas for active and quiet uses. We receive complaints about kids being loud while adults are looking for books. By having the space to separate the areas, everyone gets to enjoy the library in their own way. A 4-acre site, which we've had a lot of questions about, and we'd like to say if we'd been able to plan a site for the library before Main Street was designated, this amount of space is what would have been requested. It allows space for a 33,000 square foot building, an area to expand that makes sense with the library layout. A parking lot that meets the new zoning requirements, drop-off areas for cars and buses, adequate drive lanes for emergency crews to support the building in an emergency, a drive-through pickup window and a book drop, rain gardens and wet ponds needed to infiltrate water on the site, space for a geothermal field, outdoor programming space and green spaces noted as a priority in the visiting session, and finally, sustainable building features. Geothermal and solar are good for the environment, but they're also very useful in reducing the operating budget of the library long term, a concern for taxpayers in the future. We believe what has been described are the requirements to build the library the community has requested. We have heard many times we shouldn't repeat the past mistake of building too small. We need the space to create a building that is sized for the library that has been envisioned, not create a library for the size of the building provided. We'd like to understand what information is needed by the village board to be able to answer any questions, and then determine the steps the board will take to continue on with determining a final location and ultimately building a library. We know this is a difficult decision, and we look forward to continuing the conversations with the village board and creating the best library, Verb, that will serve the community for generations to come. Thank you.
Thanks, Jenny. All right. Someone want to start? Any questions for the library board, or maybe I just want to make a comment. I like probably many in this room, have thought of nothing but the library for the last several months. Sleepless nights, what to do, what's right, what's best for the village. I have been part of this since the beginning. Worked with Jennifer, worked with Jenny on the fundraising. I raised a lot of money for the library, and I believe in the library. The other piece of me is as a trustee. This is $5 million that we've already borrowed. We have another $5 million that we're going to have to borrow. That's a lot of money. And I feel all of us have taken an oath to be responsible and to make sure that whatever we do is the right thing. I think a lot of us have a lot of questions about, there's been a lot of, and I'm sorry that I've seen this, especially at this time of year, people trashing everybody about wanting this and wanting that, and those people don't know what they want. And I just think that we're better than that. I think this whole thing has come to a division in our community, and to me it's sad to see. So we have to be responsible. We're responsible. We're the ones elected. We're the ones that the taxpayers are going to blame. when they see their taxes go up because this year and next year. So we have to do this right. I attended all the listening sessions, took notes on everybody who spoke. And I'm just going to tell you what, I did a little data crunching. Jennifer provided all the comments. I had all the emails, even got more emails this afternoon. And I feel a responsibility that I have to also listen to the people who elected me. So the people there, so let me tell you what, just the listening sessions, the community input, and the emails, and I didn't do, nobody was duplicated. I made sure if they said something once, that was all they were counted. I had 119 responses. 47% want to see this downtown. 36% do not want to see it at Alpine. There's 16.8% said Alpine. So if you combine the downtown and not Alpine, that's 83%. And then just let me tell you, on the listening sessions, I just did the listening sessions, there were 30 speakers. 53% said downtown. 20% said not Alpine. And then those who said Alpine were 27%. And again, the downtown and Alpine was 73%. I mean, how can I, as a trustee, not pay attention to that as well? I've always thought that we could be creative. Arlen mentioned this thing. We have great architects. I know we can make this happen. We just got to get creative. So I'm going to stop there and let other people sort of chime in. Who wants to? Go ahead, Amanda.
Okay. So I too have, been thinking about this a lot. I heard all the comments. I appreciate all the comments. Even people who I, haven't necessarily agreed with, people, at least to me, have been for the most part respectful, and I do appreciate that. I hear you. And I guess while numbers and looking at who supported it that's important, I found that in a lot of the emails I received, people didn't necessarily have enough facts for the position that they were advocating. And it's not their fault. This isn't about blame. This is people who said, who are saying things like build the library where it currently is, without necessarily realizing that there's literally an underground creek that runs under that area. The ground there is terrible. It would cost tons of money to fix that. Now, I don't have a number for you because we haven't done that study, but that's not cheap, okay? That would be more money to build a library there that fits our needs. Building a 3-story library, that is something that the library requested we didn't do because of the manpower it takes to staff that and the ongoing operational costs. I've heard people say, don't rush into this. This isn't being rushed. We've literally been working on this for years and years. This is not a speedy decision that we're coming to. I hear talk about equity. And, I think to myself, well, the food pantry was out there and, put out there, and I didn't hear too much about it when we did that. Not that that was our decision, but, and we're building affordable housing out that way. And I look at, Mike hasn't presented it here, but I know there's some data talking about how many households are within a mile of the Keller Alpine site as opposed to the downtown site. And, no matter where we build the library, it's going to be distant from somebody. I haven't heard people talking about our transportation committee. I'm really excited about that, and that would level it out for a lot of people. For people who don't have vehicles, that's something that we're gonna be putting in place. You know, I've heard people say, well, why are we focusing so much on having green space around the library? Well, part of that's in the packet tonight. We did focus groups. We talked to people in the community when we were first talking about designing the library, and that was a huge part of what we heard back from people, that green space around a library was important to this community. And so, you know, based on all of that, where I'm kind of at now is I would like to see us put the library in Keller Alpine Meadows, and with a little room for future expansion. And I'd like to see us take the rest of the land and donate it to the Conservancy, the rest of that land. And I see that as a way to keep green space for the future, for future generations. I see it as what I think is a pretty decent compromise. I'd like to make sure when we build the library that we disturb the wetlands as little as possible. I like green space too. I use that trail through Lerner Conservation Park. I walk that. Green space is important. We have to preserve it. I think the library taking up 4 or 5 acres, whatever we decide we need for that site, and having the rest, 15, 16 acres of Keller Alpine, whatever's left, being preserved, sounds like a decent compromise. But I don't know how others feel about it, and I'll open it up.
Derek, you want to go? Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, I actually don't want to make a statement at the moment. I would really like to get the library board to present information about what's good and what's bad of each of these 3 sites. What are the challenges of putting a facility on each of these sites, and what are the costs of overcoming those challenges? Because I agree with what Judy Knutson said. We need to be financially responsible. We have to have taxpayers pay for this stuff. And, I'm looking at a village that, no, I'm speechifying. I'm looking at a village that 12 years down the line will have $60 million in debt. And we have caps on how much money we can lend or borrow, and we have caps on how much our residents can afford to pay in taxes. So we're at the point where how much these facilities cost is going to really help make a choice as to which one we use, because hate to tell you, there's a ton of other things that we also need to cover. And those things include things like, will there be an e-way for animals to move in and out of Keller once Alpine Farm ever gets developed? Will we have money to put up public transit? Will we have money to convert our village to use renewable energy? There's one thing after another, and if we commit everything to a library, we're making choices about what we're not going to be able to do. We're not a big village. The spigot of money here isn't endless, and it's, going to come due for us. So with that, sorry for the speech, with that, could you please elaborate on the challenges and what you perceive as the costs of each of these sites, and also comment on what the costs are for delaying?
Do you want Jeff to take that, or?
Yeah, I was gonna say, we have Jeff Vine here, who's our owner's rep. He would probably be the best person to answer that question right now.
Well, we did study the North Main Street site in more detail. So the last time that we were here, I had a summary of that, and I think people are fairly familiar with that. The summary of all of the issues that we had there and the cost impacts was roughly $600,000 for that site. I guess at first I'm just gonna talk about dollars, but then maybe I could just give a summary of what we know about the three sites, as far as what's good and what's bad. But for Main Street, there was roughly $600,000 worth of cost that we identified that would be site-specific cost that was above and beyond what we would typically budget for what I'll call a normal construction site. At the Brook Street or the existing library site, the challenges with finances there are the soils and the site-specific construction costs are similar, if not more than what they would be at the North Main Street site. So if we were to build there, I would anticipate that we would have at least a $600,000 problem, or you could just say it's more than North Main Street as far as site-specific costs go. But to add to that, there's the cost of demolition of the buildings that are on that site. There's the cost to temporarily relocate, and there would be potentially cost of remodeling in the space that the library is going to relocate in. You know, there's all kinds of cost associated with that, moving twice and setting up and operating somewhere else during the course of the construction. And then the other thing about that site is that the property that's being discussed is currently the property that the senior center's on. And either would be waiting to coordinate with them finding a temporary solution and finding a temporary solution for the library, or potentially people have suggested that we could coordinate with them and combine the uses into one large project. Well, looking at their timeline and their horizon, I'm believing that they're talking about not building until 24, 25. Is that what you had discussed?
Which was that correct?
And even if we,
That was the plan, but we thought we were following the library.
yes, well, let me say it a different way. Even if we decided today that we were gonna coordinate with the senior center, they haven't been through the visioning process. They don't know exactly what they're gonna build. They have lots of planning of their own that they need to do. And so we looked at if we delay a year, or if we delay 2 years, the start of construction for the library, as we try to coordinate that and figure out what this mixed use would be for that site. Looking at the escalation costs for our overall budget, the first year we had a higher percentage of escalation for construction costs because we're in a very unique environment right now. It's actually happening right now today. We're having the biggest increase in construction costs that I've seen in my 33-year construction career. And we think that's going to continue to happen for the next year, at least going forward. So we somewhat conservatively increased the construction cost, and then the rest of the budget we escalated at 5%. But if you take our total budget for 1 year delay is $952,000. We reduced the construction escalation for the second year, that would be $687,000. You know, plus the site-specific costs, demolition, the relocation, all of those things. So very quickly, you get well north of $2 million, $2.5 million to try to have a project on the existing library site. And remember, that site was ruled out way back when I wasn't here, but when we were looking at site selection the first time around. So to me, that's enough dollars and enough time and escalation that maybe that's not the site. And then if we're looking at site-specific cost at the Alpine site, we're really not anticipating any. We have the wetland delineation that was completed, and the wetlands don't impact where we're talking about the new project being. And we do need to have a soils geotechnical exploration report done on that site, but we're not anticipating anything. The site for the building is up high enough that the soil should be drier, and the only thing that we would be looking for is if there's some sort of poor soils there that the building couldn't bear on, that would need, you know, some sort of site preparation cost. But again, I'm not anticipating that. So, you know, those are roughly the dollars. 0 versus 600 versus, you know, a lot more depending on how complicated we would make the coordination with the senior center. Just to go back and talk a little bit about pros and cons, and again, we've been waiting to kind of focus in on what sites are we talking about, and if you want us to go back and spend more time and do more research, we could come back with some in-depth pros and cons about the different sites, but we know enough right now that we can just kind of summarize that. So to look back at the North Main Street analysis that we did, again, it was $600,000. Most of that is in dealing with poor soils and water problems and undercutting and, you know, just kind of construction cost. But the other negatives when we looked at that, because again, we didn't say that we couldn't build there. We said if we built there, we'd have to come up with more money, right? We'd have to come up with $600,000. And then the other thing is that there's all these compromises that would be happening that we wanted to make sure people were aware of, you know, before we continued down that path. So let's just go through that list again. The parking stalls would be smaller than what the current regulation is. We would ask for a variance for that. The drive lanes would be narrower than are currently required. We would have to ask a variance for that. All the trees on the site are going to have to go. When we excavate for the parking lots, which are up against the property lines that are within the setbacks, which we would also need to get a variance for because we're going to build those lots too close to the property line. We're potentially killing trees that are on the property line, whether they're on our property or if they're just over to the other side of the property. There's going to be room for very little landscaping. There's no outdoor program space. There's no connection to nature because we've taken everything off the site. There's no room for future expansion. There's no outdoor community gathering space. There's kind of a confused book drop-off area because we've only got one side of the building that we can access. And what that does is it doesn't allow us to have parking adjacent to the building for seniors or people with access needs. And, you know, one suggestion that was made is that we could reduce the square footage of the building that would help solve the space problems for some of these things that we're going to be losing, or the negative impacts, I guess, of not having enough land. When you reduce, if we're trying to gain square footage of site, if we reduce, if we're trying to gain 5,000 square foot of site and we take away 5,000 square foot of building footprint on a two-story building, we're taking away 10,000 square feet of building because it's 2 stories. So very quickly, we can't reduce the footprint of the building itself to make up for, you know, the amount of space that we would need to have all of these things work the way that they're supposed to work on that site.
Would this be an enhancement to the property values of the people in the neighborhood, or would it hurt their property values?
I guess it depends on what people's opinion is of whether that, I mean, that's not for me to say if this is a good thing or a bad thing for that neighborhood. I know there's people for it and against it, but it's going to be kind of wedged in there, so we'll let it stay at that. We would have similar site constraint sizes at the existing library site, at the Northbrook site. So even if we did wait and go through the planning with the senior center, we would still be trying to build a facility on a number of acres that's too small to have all of these things happening. It's basically the same thing as the Main Street site. If we're coordinating with the senior center and think that we're going to be able to have the space that we need for them to be in the same building, and the things that they need aren't, very few of those would overlap with the use in the building for the library. So it's basically you're building 2 buildings together. You're not building one building that's being shared that efficiently. So there's going to have to be more space for that building, and, you know, puts more constraint on the site space problem that we would already have that would be similar to Main Street. So again, to me, that's the least desirable site. And then if we go to Alpine and we have we've said 4 acres, but when we do if we actually do a site layout for that site and it's 3.5 acres or 3.8 acres or whatever it would be, we'd be as sufficient as possible. That amount of space, the negatives for the lack of site space would go away. So I guess that's, looking at it from a construction standpoint and just trying to design on the site, that's where I think the 3 sites sit right now.
All right, who's got
Could I follow
questions?
up on a couple questions?
Yes.
Okay. Do we risk, if we do this downtown and redo the lot where the library is right now, what happens with the post office? Do we risk the post office moving out of downtown?
Want me to answer that one?
Whoever can.
Well, we currently lease space. We currently lease space to the post office. We own the building. They are a tenant of ours. It is a woefully small building for their needs, and they've been looking for an additional site. I actually spoke with the postmaster who just returned to this area after 1 year being away. She called me and asked me what was going on with the post office, and we said we have not been contacted by them in a very, very long time period. We will be negotiating a lease with them this next year, possibly for another year or 2 years, whatever really is happening based off the decisions with the village board here. But we've reiterated to the post office numerous times that we want them in the village, and they are continuing to look at spaces in the village. I don't believe it's their intention to ever leave the village, but they've been very difficult to work with as far as just, I think, a lot of the decision makers are not anywhere in this area, and so they don't tend to understand, I think, some of the logistics of what's going on in our village.
And Jennifer, do we risk losing library staff if we delay the library for 2 or 3 years, given the current working conditions?
I don't know if I can answer that fairly. Obviously working conditions there's days where I am thankful that I have the staff sticking around that I do, because I don't want to have to train a new person and say, this is your workspace. So there are definitely challenges there. We're making do the best we can. I can't say we're going to lose somebody because of that. I can't say we won't. But it impacts, the current building we have impacts everything we do. And it's definitely posing challenges for a lot of the things that we do.
Okay.
All right, Carlene and then Derek.
You can go.
All right.
Well, I did write a statement because I wanted to make sure that I made the points that I think are important. So first, I want to acknowledge the commitment of the library board colleagues to the process of creating a vision for the new library for the Oregon area and bringing the project to this point. I'm the newest member, and I've been appointed as a village board trustee to the library board, so I can't claim any credit for any of it. You guys have just done a phenomenal amount of work, and I commend you and appreciate it. Second, I want to acknowledge and thank the members of the Oregon community for your participation over the years and more recently in the process. Some of you participated in the visioning and helped with fundraising. More recently, many of you voiced your opinion about the location of the new library through public comments before this body, at the library board listening sessions, and through emails to the village and library boards. Public engagement is something I feel passionately about, and it's an indication of the level of civic engagement in our community about how many people have participated. I want to share with you my thoughts about where the library should go, but first I'd like for you to know just a little bit more about me and how I come to this. My husband and I moved into the village of Oregon in March of 2020. Prior to that, we had a residence for 20 years on 5 acres on Union Road between Oregon and Brooklyn, amid corn and soybean fields and backing up to an 11-acre lake. We loved living in that tranquil park-like setting. And over the years, we mowed a lot less, we planted more prairie perennials, and we worked with our farm neighbors to create a setback from plowing near the edge of the lake to prevent runoff, and we maintained paths around it. For the last 3 years, a bald eagle nested in a large oak tree by that lake, and probably still does. The last 3 years we lived there, so we've been gone from there for 2 summers. We also watched heron and egret rookeries around the lake and annual migrations of bufflehead, shoveler, and merganser ducks, in addition to mallards and Canadian geese. And some years, we even had trumpeter swans grace our little lake, and turtles galore. Before that, we lived off of Netherwood Road on Woodvale Drive, just north of Keller Alpine Parkway. I'm also a retired educator with a master's degree in environmental and experiential education. Over the years, I've written numerous grants, been part of the initial GROW cohort of educators in collaboration with the Wisconsin School Gardens Network. I've developed and implemented numerous curricular units related to gardening, urban forestry, rain gardens, wetlands, habitat preservation, and more. Through these learning expeditions, my students created and maintained in my school as well, not just my class, a community garden and orchard, investigated, planned, and built a 2,500 square foot rain garden, and helped restore an oak opening forest and vernal pond adjacent to our school. In addition, my students benefited from regular expeditions into other natural spaces, including Madison's Bud Jackson School Forest, Wyalusing State Park, Pops Cave, and Kettle Moraine State Park. I strongly feel the need to preserve, conserve, and protect natural places and spaces. I am also a proponent of a state-of-the-art relevant public library. As an educator and community member, I support natural spaces as necessary to the education of our youth, for recreation and mental health of our community, for wildlife habitat, and for the long-term preservation of our planet. I also believe public libraries provide essential services and are the heart of our schools and community. In my opinion, it is not only possible but vital that these values are priorities for our community. Citing the public library at Keller Alpine Meadows provides this opportunity. I'm a proponent of the Keller Alpine Meadows location, incorporating the surrounding natural area into programming through the library. I would also like to see a nature center as part of the facility and support rezoning the remainder of the area as a conservation park. Building a state-of-the-art library to have at least the least possible footprint, using sustainable materials, maximizing natural light and green energy to create a net zero facility similar to the new Forest Edge Library, Elementary, would be a long-term benefit to our community. The Keller Alpine Meadows site meets the library's needs and provides a unique opportunity to preserve, enhance, and maintain the natural areas around it while educating our community. So I wanted to I was just afraid if I started to talk, I'd just go off. So there you have it.
All right. Derek.
Yeah, I'd just like to, again, thank everyone for all the public input. It's been great to hear from everyone in the village, and in some cases multiple times. I appreciate all the feedback. And I just want to touch on a few things, because I did watch the library board meeting the other night, the recent special 2-hour one. There's a couple of points in there that I just wanted to kind of go over, and a couple of points from Jennifer's statement at the beginning. I heard the verb analogy in both settings. I do appreciate that. But when it came to the needs of the building, the 2-to-1 story building, the seating, the program spaces, sensory rooms, all that kind of stuff, the only time that the needs for that building kind of involved more space was for the outdoor programming spaces and future expansion. In listening to the public input and commentary, like Randy had pointed out earlier with percentages, I have a really hard time ignoring the amount of public input that we've gotten and just putting it out at Alpine anyway. I feel that really this timeline that we seem to be on is somewhat of an artificial timeline that we're self-imposing, and ultimately I don't see why, as a board, that space out at Keller Alpine cannot be set aside for conservancy just in general, without putting a building on it. Just keep it as nature, because one thing that I noticed during Mr. Vine's presentation that he mentioned is he mentioned that the wetlands won't impact the project, but I still don't think we, even with the wetland delineation, have a full understanding of how the project will impact the wetlands. So I think we need to be somewhat cognizant of that. One other point from the public input, there was one kind of outlier on the Saturday session, Steve Johnston. Mr. Johnston's argument wasn't for a location of the library, it was more the price tag associated with it, which I can really appreciate. And the available resources around, as we're looking at natural spaces and the education of our children, the taxpayers of the community recently built out at Forest Edge, and we conveniently have on the library board Dr. Leslie Bergstrom as a resource to partner with to have educational programs in a natural environment for the children in the community. There's a lot of ground, and honestly, this whole project comes down to really three things: the social cost, the economic cost, and the environmental cost. I tend to lean more toward focusing on the social and actually all three, the economical and the environmental cost, because I still don't think that putting a library in the middle of what could be a nature preserve is a good idea. I think the people in the village seem to understand that there is a cost associated with keeping the building downtown. I haven't heard anyone other than Mr. Johnston say anything about the price tag of the building. As I listened to the library board session the other day, the other thing that kind of struck me was the need for expediency, and I understand the rising cost of construction. Given that I do work kind of within those realms, prices at my work have been going up fairly steadily since the onset of the pandemic, so I do understand the increased cost, construction cost, and delaying the process. But I would throw out there that this evening we're reviewing the diversity, equity, and inclusion ordinance later on in the packet, and we kind of fast-tracked that committee based on a $15,000 to $16,000 contract, depending on which group we're going with for the diversity, equity, and inclusion training for the staff. And I would almost say that slowing down, creating the sustainability committee, and seeing what the actual environmental impacts are of putting it out at Alpine Keller are before we really make this decision. I'd say it's really hard to ignore the amount of public commentary that we've gotten that just says keep the building downtown. So with that, I'll open it up to whoever else.
Yeah, Carlene.
I just need to respond to the word ignore. I don't think anybody's ignoring. And I think that there's been a lot of really heartfelt consideration that's gone into this. So I don't feel like characterizing it as ignoring is appropriate. Maybe considering it and deciding otherwise, or deciding to somehow come up with a compromise plan, I could go with that, but I just don't appreciate that term.
Oh, and I'll backtrack there. And I do understand that all of you have taken this input and processed it in your own way, so I apologize for using the term ignore. Sorry about that.
Fine, thank you. Appreciate that.
You bet.
So Jenny, I have a question for you in the library. What, if anything, what can you compromise on this project? What compromises are there?
Randy, are you asking like size-wise?
Size-wise,
what would we have to get rid of to lower our footprint?
That's one thing, or whatever. What are you willing to compromise on this thing?
So we had this discussion on Monday, and there's the way the library is designed currently, with the amount of space we have, with the rooms that we have, they're all there for a purpose. right?
Mhm.
I know you said you don't think we need any more space besides needs. You said the only thing you heard was outdoor space and something else that's additional space. Every one of those meeting rooms in there is for a specific purpose. We're the only library currently that doesn't have a study spaces in their library, right? That's a service we'd like to provide. There's meeting rooms that are needed so that Kelly can have her programs, right? There's meeting rooms that Alicia needs. There's spaces for the books. So if we cut down 2 or 3 meeting rooms, right? That's all spaces that Jennifer's already given up for her books that she said, when we were doing all this programming, she said, okay, people said they want to have this meeting spaces, we will prioritize that, right? So if you took those out, she would rather have more books, but she's willing to do that. Can we cut down the library? Sure, we can figure out a way to do it, but then there's things that we're not providing to the community that we've heard that they want, or things that we're doing and we're trying to figure out a different way to do. To me, the first thing that we're going to unfortunately probably do is not have geothermal, not have solar, right? I've done construction a long time. The first thing you do is get rid of the things that are nice to have, which unfortunately in the long run are the things that save the money for the taxpayers, right? Having a high quality building, having sustainable features, having a space that you're not gonna have to tear things apart to remodel in the future, right? All of those things. So are there ways to do it? Yeah, and we can go and have those discussions and do it. If the guidance is you have 2.6 acres, here's the building it is, we'll figure out how to make that work. It's just not gonna provide the library that we feel that the community needs.
So Jenny, I know you and I have talked about this, and I saw an email today that potentially there are some potential grants that, and I'm not saying 100%, but that we could, for like the geothermal and some things that we could do to sort of offset some of these costs. We have to apply for them, we have to see if we qualify and all that sort of thing. But I think that's a potential. Yes, would you agree?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, we asked that question about the infrastructure bill.
Yeah.
But that's $150,000. It's not 600, it's not.
Well,
it's part of it. I
it's
get
something,
it, and that's what
yeah,
we would
yeah.
love to do that. I mean, Jennifer's already looked at ways to do it, right?
Right.
That's where the information came from. We thankfully have librarians that are like the quickest researchers in the whole world. It's really fun. You send an email and 2 seconds later they're like, here, and you're like, you're amazing.
So here's one thing that I have had a problem with for several months. We have a very creative architect. I want to see what is possible at these sites. I want to see what is possible. And in terms of these costs, I mean, to be honest, when I look at these again, I'm not really surprised. There's going to be costs at any site you go to, but there's ways to sort of be creative, to sort of deal with them. I want to see us do that.
Okay.
And I want to see the architects get creative at these sites.
May I?
Can I
add
address
something?
that?
Hold on. Can Coral
What-
say
what-
that
what?
quick? Coral
Yeah,
has a
may I
question.
add something? I hear you about, I believe we can be creative.
Yeah.
I think there's a really big difference between being creative and, eliminating a half an acre of need, and being creative and cutting us down from 2.5, from 4 acres to 2.5 acres.
Okay.
So I do think one of my large concerns is this lot that we currently have on Main. The idea of building a library that we know will potentially need smaller parking spaces and tighter parking lot in order to accomplish, that worries me, because I know as a library board, one of the things that we are up against is the fact that when the library was built, day one, it was too small.
Mm-hmm.
And I very much do not want to be a part of a group that builds a library that on day one is too small. I am not saying that Alpine is, the final location, but I do think that being able to cut down a vision from 4 acre vision to a 2.5 acre vision is a really large ask, and will likely result in our library being too small when we open it.
So what, and how I respond to that is, and again, I want to see, let the architects loose. I want to see what they can do. So here's the problem I have. I've been asking, show me what can be done at these sites, and help me to make an informed decision. I need to know that. I don't want to know that it's just going to cost $600,000 at the current site. You got to give me the facts here.
And, sorry, can I ask what those facts are? Is it pictures? Is it different
What
layouts?
is possible at these sites?
You have
What is
facts,
not
Randy,
possible?
You're just not
Jenny,
listening.
can I respond?
Sure.
Randy?
Yeah,
Can
go
I
ahead.
respond to your question? So, we've spent a couple months designing at the North Main Street site. So when you say, let's turn the architect loose, let's have people be creative, we've had the architect, the civil engineer, and myself, and the library staff and board, and we've been creative at the North Main Street site. So we can try to go back to that and figure out what other possibilities there might be. But then I want to ask, what other sites are we talking about? Do you want us to explore the current Brook Street site?
I
even
do.
if there's
Personally, I do. And I also want you to explore the Alpine, those three.
Okay. And knowing that the current Brook Street site is a couple $1 million worth of impact?
You need to prove that to me. Just because somebody says it's 600,000, you gotta show me.
Okay.
Okay, that's all I'm asking, so that I can have it in front of me and so I can make a sort of a informed choice.
It's all three sites? Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, for me, other trustees might have a different, but I just need, show me what can happen, show me what can happen, help me so I can make an informed decision. I gotta have the facts, so.
Carrie wants to say something.
Randy, I just want, we're going to have to pay the architect to do this, and so I'm wondering if you can give us some sort of budget for that, because we have to give them an idea how much time to spend.
I have no idea. I mean,
So are we suggesting this money should come out of the budget
Well-
for the future build?
well, I mean, how am I gonna how can I make a decision if I don't have the facts?
Guys, I think that's something we'll figure, we have an allowance, we know what we need to do some architects. I think we can pay them some hours. I think it'll be okay.
So here's the other reason I'm asking that. All the folks who are saying, I want it downtown, bring something back to us that says, I mean, show us and be truthful, if it can work, if it can't work, so that we are able to go back to them and say, hey, they did a really good job looking at it to see if it would work. Here's the results. That way, at least.
So if we find this in the past materials, because all I know is that since this visioning process began, I have been told that it is not physically possible to have the senior center and the library on the sites where we are now. And
show us.
If we go back and find that in the materials for you, then will that,
I'm
would
just
that help?
asking, I'm asking for some proof, that's
Okay.
all. Okay. All right, Derek, and then, yeah, go ahead.
I'd just like to go back to something that Jennifer said earlier and just clarify a few points. I'm not actually looking for you to scale back the size of the building. I think the 33,000 square feet is a great mark for the size of the building. I'm just saying some of the outdoor spaces may have to be compromised to allow for the public opinion to put the library in the downtown location. That said, with the increased construction cost that Mr. Vine is pointing out of the couple of $1 million to put it down here on the Brook Street site, again, we need to figure out how that fits with the rest of the building and the design of the building. And I understand this has been a long process, and through the beginning stages, me and my wife actually sat through a couple of the library board listening sessions, discussed a few things. It seemed like the design of this building was very much copied and pasted from the Wanakee building, which, I mean, may or may not be true. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong on some of that. But there's a lot of similarities. I work up in Wanakee. I drive by that library every day, just about, sometimes multiple times a day. The one thing that I notice about that library is how empty the green spaces are and how the outdoor seating just seems to be sitting there empty. So I have a really hard time sacrificing the location next to the elementary schools and the youth center based on someone's vision of wanting an exceptional building on a hill in the middle of what could be a nature preserve. So that's where I struggle with. It's not the size of the building.
Okay.
You guys do great work. Your programming is great. And I find that as far as nature programming goes, we just maybe need to get a little creative with the school district and work with that Forest Edge area that we have out there. I too would like more information on the downtown location, or on the Brook Street location as far as construction costs associated with it. And I understand the increase, what you've laid out tonight as far as the increased building cost makes perfect sense to me. I just don't know as though that's not an expense that the village isn't willing to take in order to keep the building downtown. Some other things may just have to be cut.
Thank you.
But again,
that clarifies. Thank you.
But not the size. The size I think
Okay,
is great.
sorry, I took that differently, so
No,
thank
that's
you for
fine.
that clarification.
You bet.
So the one thing I want to clarify, Jenny, is that I know in your budget, you do have a $500,000 contingency in the budget.
So this is something that, as a construction person, I don't. The first thing everyone wants to do is take the $500,000 out that you put before you even start designing and saying, look, you have a contingency, you can use it. The idea of that money is when we start building, besides what we're expecting, something's gonna happen. Whether it's an increase in structural steel cost, whether it's a increase in whatever it is, that $500,000 is meant to be a design contingency. It's meant to be there to help facilitate whatever is gonna come then. It's not meant to go, hey, here's this money, right? We'll be able to use it, but I can tell you that as soon as we start, there will be something, and that's what that money is there for in the budget to begin with. And I can tell you, I've worked on the owner side, I've worked on the construction side. The first thing everyone wants to do is take that money and just clear it away. I would be really, really nervous to start a construction project that hasn't even been designed without any sort of contingency. That would be my struggle with that. I apologize, sorry.
There's two more comments for that, if I could. So there's a contingency line item in the budget, but the budget that we had, that we started with, was already $278,000 over budget, and that's before we started identifying the site-specific cost at Main Street, which is one of the reasons why we stopped and came to the board and said, hey, we've got a budget problem. So, and then the other thing that's happened is we've lost I guess have 4 months of cost escalation that's happening while we're going through this process. So I'm worried about having budget problems before we start talking about reducing contingency. So that's where we currently stand.
Okay, Derek, you got a comment?
Just,
Carlene, you can go next.
I'm sorry,
Just hold on.
I'm sorry, it's hard to see down there.
Yeah, I can't see you. So go ahead, Carlene.
So in the packet on page 153, this feasibility study was done in 2019 with OPN with community involvement. And these are the sites these are the kinds of buildings that people identified as the kind of building they would like to see. And the indoor spaces, I mean, if we're just looking at pictures, but there's also analysis in this study that's been done already about what the community wants in a library. That was 2 years ago. There's been a lot that's gone on since then. I'm new to this, and I still feel like we have the information that we need in order to make a decision. And the more that we delay, the more the costs go up, the less of a building we'll be able to build, and those things that make it sustainable are the things that go by the wayside. And I just want to address again, Derek, your comment about outdoor education spaces. They're not used all the time. You're absolutely correct. They're not. But if it is a priority, and we have identified that as a priority, just as Jenny said, we have fabulous librarians who will make use of that space and will make sure that we have programming that utilizes that space. I have all the confidence in the world, and that's what we're also hearing from the community, is that a need for preservation, conservation, then we need to educate about that. And, you know, that doesn't just happen in classrooms in schools.
All right, Derek, and then.
I would agree with your assertion there, but I would also say that I've been told that the Alpine Keller site is walkable from downtown and elementary schools. If these sites are available to the public right now, why do we not have the programming in place currently? Because, I mean, it's not that the Alpine Keller area is not available to the library, we're just choosing not to use it that way at this moment. And I would also say that based on everything I've heard, that I would fully expect there to be some sort of programming regardless of where this building ends up out at Keller Alpine, as far as, you know, your story walks and things like that. I'm not saying that the library shouldn't use the space, I'm just saying that their building perhaps doesn't need to occupy it. Another thing that I'd just like to point out, and again, it comes back to cost of construction. As we're looking at this, at one point during this whole process, the village was kicking around the idea of spending $500,000 to save the large tree. I think it was around 5 or 6, if I'm not mistaken. Mike, you might remember better than I do during some of those sessions.
I don't know that a number was ever put on it.
I vaguely remember a number being put on that at one point, but the village is not necessarily opposed to spending money on green initiatives for the building, but they seem to take issue with putting the building in what could be a nature conservancy from what I'm seeing from the public input.
All right.
Just one other point that I'd like to hit. So if the space at Brook Street was slightly larger, would that accommodate your needs a little bit better?
So if we didn't have to buy property, right, because that's a budget issue, and if there wasn't a 3-foot creek right underneath Brook Street,
Right.
which is another issue.
I understand that.
If we could find a way to do 3.5 acres, right, we could definitely figure out ways to make spaces work.
Okay, because one of the property owners in that area has indicated that they
Right,
would
at
be.
what, $300,000-$600,000, which is right where we're at.
I haven't talked to dollars with them, but
If you look at the assessed value.
The village does not necessarily seem opposed to spending on this project. If we need to make it larger, I'm not opposed to that either.
So just to address that, the properties that Derek's talking about, or at least if it's the same property owner, was talking about selling to the village at a fair market value, and those 2 properties are assessed at just over $525,000. So there would be the opportunity to potentially acquire additional property, but again, there would be additional costs for that, which would either require additional funds somehow or taking out of what funds we already have available, which would make the building footprint smaller. So.
All right.
Can
Anybody else? Yeah, Amanda?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I'm opposed to spending a lot more on this project, and I heard Mike say that he is too. I mean, the reason I ran for this seat is because, you know, one of the big reasons, there were multiple, but the previous village board before us had said $6 million, was good enough for the library, and I disagreed with that. So I ran for office, and here I am, and I'm the one who made that motion and said we should up this to 10 because I believe we need a nice library. But I'm not gonna sit here and up it further, because we have seniors in this town, we have people who are being priced out of their homes, and I do hear from those people, and I do watch the dollars. And so we do have to watch our budget. The idea of building the building around a tree was a few years ago. It was pre-COVID, and it was, when the costs were lower, and we thought, well, let's talk about it. We've reevaluated, and when we were looking at this initial site, we didn't have the Keller Alpine Meadow property. It was part of the school district. And so as we've moved through this project, we've had to reevaluate as we go. And this is where we are now. And I don't see realistically how we can afford to put the library at 249 North Main or downtown. Keller Alpine Meadow is our best bet. And I just really feel like, you know, we talk about this property like it's already part of the Conservancy and we're taking it away. This is land that is adjacent to the Conservancy. It is village-owned land that was slated for development. And we're saying, look, we hear you, but we need space for a library. We're talking about taking 4 acres from a large property, and we're not sure what we're doing with the rest of it. Like I said, I'd like to make it Conservancy land because we hear you, we're listening. I feel like this discussion, we have the facts we need. I think we need to make a decision.
Can I just say too, the library board is not asking for additional funds, so I just want to be clear that there's been no requests for additional funds at this time, so, I just want to make that abundantly clear. And that's part of the underlying theme to a lot of our discussions is we know the funds available and want to make good use of them, and so that's kind of been an undertone to all the library board discussion over the past couple of years, because for a long time we didn't have enough to even build, you know, half of what we thought we needed. So I just want to be clear about that.
Yep. Mike?
Yeah, I'm gonna take a swipe at simplifying this discussion and see where we go on it. We got one site here that we've studied for years, right, out of all 3 of these, and I wanna take a stab at it. Jeff, do you think that site's large enough to support the library as you've seen it presented?
Which site specifically?
249 North Main Street.
No, I think the compromises are too great at that site.
Okay. Elise, you're the planner. What do you think?
I don't think that's the right site for the library to
Okay. So we've got the entire library board, I believe. I mean, I was at the library board meeting the other night, and Kyle Severson said, at one point, posed the question, are we at the point, and this is a quote, are we at the point where we can, as a consensus, say, well, it's definitely not North Main Street? And while the library board didn't vote on this, no one disputed the fact that they didn't want it on North Main Street. So the library board doesn't want it there. Their owner representative says it's a mistake, and we won't get the library we want. Jeff and Elise, who we trust to plan our village and make sure our village runs well, say it's the wrong spot. We've wasted a lot of time, years, looking at this spot and trying to put it together. And the only solution that we have is to cram everything in there and run it to the boundaries of the property line. And let me tell you what the result is on that neighborhood. I asked about property values earlier. Let's play this out. Particularly on Market Street, where those lots aren't very deep. So you got Market Street on one side, you got a house, and then you got the green space, the lot you want to build on behind that. Okay, that's a very much, talk about affordable housing, that's a working class neighborhood. That's not only a working class neighborhood, that's actually a multiracial community back there that we are going to be inflicting this library on. And I say inflicting very purposely, because what we are going to do is cut down the trees, not only the library trees, but the trees in their yard. We're going to run pavement right up to the property line. People are not going to be able to enjoy their backyards again. These are not very deep yards. For working class families, a home is the largest source of savings that most people have for retirement. So we will be driving their property values down. We will be chipping away at their retirements, which is very interesting on the very night that we're talking about forming a diversity, equity and inclusion committee. We will be chipping away at working class and minority property values in our community. And as those get chipped away at, as people get annoyed with this oversized facility in their backyard, what we will have is property owners stop fixing up their property, deciding it's not worth it, selling it, ending up going to landlords, and a cycle begins where instead of all the investment we've seen in one of our historic neighborhoods over the last 15 years, and all the people that are fixing up their houses, we will start a cycle the other direction, and we will have a blighted area on the north side of downtown. I don't think that's what any of us want, and I'm putting forward a motion right now to remove 249 North Main Street from consideration.
Second?
Yeah.
A second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. All right, let's do up or down. All in favor, say aye.
I,
Aye.
I'm opposed. Opposed?
Who else, how many people are opposed?
Oh, actually,
Is it 3 opposed?
yeah.
All right, so what's next?
I take
We're
a
down to
stab
two
at it.
properties.
Or, what's that?
Go ahead.
So I'd like to propose, I'll say the motion is that the village move forward with a new proposed site for the village at Keller Alpine Meadows. I think I'll just leave it at that.
You mean for the library?
For-
not
for-
the adult.
I'm sorry, for the library, yes. I'm tired.
Yeah. Don't understand that.
Yes,
All right,
yes.
motion, second.
Seconded.
Okay, discussion. So here's the problem I have with that. We don't know anything about the site. We haven't done any soil borings or anything. We think maybe it's good. That's not good
So
enough for
the
me.
intention of my motion is not that we say this is the final site, go build. The intention of the motion is that we move forward as if that's going to be the future site and do those things.
Well,
That's what my intent
This is what got us in trouble before on North Main Street. So, there is a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Derek?
I would think that if we vote on this and it does pass, that we're pigeonholing ourselves here, and we're basically telling the village that this is, I mean, we're in essence moving that billboard from the 249 North Main Street site right out to Keller Alpine, without even exploring the possibility of looking at moving the senior center prior to the library, getting that project going, really, and I'll shy away from the ignoring, but I will say that the village has kind of been screaming at us to slow down and look at the not only their comments now, but what their comments have been for the, since they did the Civic Campus Master Plan, and slow down and keep the local amenities downtown. And this is almost similar to something that struck me as odd since I've been on the board is, I mean, not necessarily odd, but the glacial pace at which government moves. There's been one other exception to that, and that is the movement of the village hall, which I'm not disagreeing with. I think that's a good, other than the location of it, it was a good price, it's a good project, fully supportive of it. But man, did that go fast, and I think we're doing the same thing here.
Okay, any other discussion? Yep, Mike?
Yeah, I actually agree it's probably a little premature. I think we should get soil studies at that area. And I would also think that not only should we get soil studies at the proposed location, but we should also look at soil studies on the high area in the cornfield that's further away from the wetland areas, and it's also, goodness, a cornfield's a monoculture. It's almost, with the exception of the corn on it, it's almost a desert. Anything we do with the library will be better than what's there. So that's my take.
All right, so there's a motion and a second, and Amanda, I'm gonna have you restate your motion, please.
Well, it's so I mean, I like the way Mike's thinking. I'm totally fine with withdrawing my motion if whoever seconded it was. You'll withdraw it? So
Okay.
let's take it off the table then.
All right,
But
it's off the table.
do you want to make that motion, Mike?
Yeah, so I would propose that
to
we
get
conduct soil studies at both the proposed site out at Keller, Alpine, and the high area of the cornfield. I believe it's like 150 feet south of Netherwood on the Alpine Parkway.
I'll second that.
Okay. I'd still like to look at the Brook Street. I want to keep that in.
And just to clarify, we do have soil borings for the Brook Street location, so we have a geotech report on that site already.
So you'll bring that to us.
I can give you a summary of that right now.
I don't need a summary right now. Okay.
Could I hear it, please?
Mike, you would like to hear it? And this is just, it's the soils report that we've had for a number of years because, again, that site was looked at in the past. So because of the elevation of the site, there's water anywhere from 2 to 5 feet below grade, depending on where you are on the site. I guess you think of it as flat, but there's a little bit of change in elevation there. And there's poor soils there to, in a lot of places, 9 foot below grade, which would be deeper than frost wall foundations. So you'd be undercutting poor soils and figuring out support for foundations. The pavement in all the areas there would have to have a sub drainage system underneath the pavement, just because it's gonna collect water and there's no place for the water to go. There's 2,000 pound per square foot bearing soil, which is kind of a low bearing capacity, so that the spread footings and things need to be a lot wider to be able to support a building on that poor bearing soil. There'd have to be a under slab drainage system underneath the slabs, so that any water that comes up when groundwater fluctuates wouldn't get up into the building. So we would have a under slab drainage system, and we wouldn't be able to have any basements on that site. Along with the poor soils that are to 9 feet below grade, we'd have to do undercutting at the parking lot areas as well to support, just new parking areas. So that's just the quick notes from the soils report that we have for that site.
All right, so I think there is a motion on the table. Yes, Mike, what was it? You want to restate it?
The
please?
motion is to conduct boring studies at 2 locations for soil in Alpine Keller.
Okay.
And Jeff, you know where those locations are, correct?
Yeah, let me just pull up a map here real quick. It'll take a few seconds for it to load, about a minute. But we can
So,
take-
we can do it. Derek, you want to say something?
Yeah, just, much like the wetland delineation and my comments about the library board meeting, I think it was back in September. This is all sounding very much prelude to a proposal. Just bearing that in mind, the village is screaming at us to slow down, but just throwing it out there, here we are. And one question for Jeff. The soil report, that's nothing that can't be engineered around at a cost, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Everybody's clear? All in favor say aye.
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 But I was hoping to see where the locations were before we.
You want to do that before you vote?
My computer loading this
Sorry,
right now.
I want to make sure that the motion is going to cover the area, because I don't think we know where at Keller Alpine we'd like a library to go just yet. So. if you don't mind. I just wanna.
We could look at, I saw somebody scrolling through our packet from one of our presentations before. And there's a drawing of that site with the proposed location in the packet. I have no idea what page, but there you go. There you go.
So, Mike, you're talking about this area up here, correct?
Correct. It's, if you look at that road that's coming in on the left there by your mouse, down from Netherwood, that one.
Yeah,
It would be right across from there,
that's the Sander
basically.
Way, yeah.
Yeah.
And just a comment real quickly on the farmability of this. This has not been farmed the last couple of years because it's been under, I think the school district was kind of working with the farmer on that for a while, weren't they?
I'm not sure.
Not sure. And so, you know, it's not been farmed because it's such a small little area, but it used to all be, the only reason this is still in kind of volunteer stuff right now is because John Durfer, who farms our portion, has not been farming that. But we had intended that it would be farmed again this next year.
So Mike, just to clarify, you're talking about up at the corner here at the top.
Not at the top because that would cause traffic problems and things. It's basically south of the gully that's used for the stormwater management system. There's a high flat plateau area that kind of sticks out east towards the retention pond. And that area is probably 5 or 6 acres of land. It's well set back from the retention pond. My understanding from the wetland delineation study that was done is the wetlands in that area are actually from groundwater and are seasonal from groundwater percolating up and going back down. So even if there was extra runoff from that area into there, it's not egressing into the rest of the wetland area and would just be absorbed with the rest of the groundwater.
So how many soil samples does it take to sample an area? Like, I mean, you know, what do you?
You're gonna actually probably end up doing two geotechnical analysis, because this would be kind of a cursory geotechnical analysis. Correct me if I'm wrong here, Jeff, but since we don't know the exact location of a building, you would want to be able to get a closer grouping of boreholes in the location of where you would have your foundations. But when you're looking at a general site to locate a building on, you might do a more widespread pattern of boreholes and maybe not as deep, just to be able to understand what you're looking at on a greater scale. What do you think, Jeff? Is that?
Yeah, and I guess, Mike, the thinking of doing 2 is just that the site to the north is an alternate, or maybe they're equally.
They're kind of an alternate. If one fails, the other one's there. I had at one point had discussions with some of the people in the Nature Alliance, and at the time they had expressed less of an opposition to having it on the development on the cornfield if it did end up out there. Their proposal or vision for the park has that little area where the path cuts south of Netherwood, cited for a couple acre development with parking and a shelter and bathrooms and a playground area. And it seemed to me not having that area there, but moving it over and letting the library serve some of those functions as a bathroom and gathering area and things, would accomplish a lot of what the Nature Alliance, I think, was intending for that area without adding more than another acre or acre and a half to the impact that it would have.
Mike, the plan for this area, at least according to Mike Grace, when I started here, was this was parking lot. This was good to be a parking lot out here for, that's why it bumps in at this location.
Plans change.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just letting you know why. Some people have asked me why it does that, and it's like, well, that was the plan for that time.
So I guess the site that we had highlighted has the topography that we would prefer, and there's really not anything usable to the south of that, if I guess south is that direction on the map. And so we were trying to be efficient and not going any further. It's not that it couldn't go up there. I'm wondering if we did a more focused geotech on that area and then maybe a couple of borings up in the cornfield on the higher elevation. I don't know if we want to spend the money on 2 full geotechs. We can.
I would defer to Jeff on that. I don't know enough.
Which Jeff? Jeff G or Jeff J? Jeff J. Yeah, I think, you know, it's like anything else. When you're designing, you want to be able to know that you're putting, that you've got the buried capacity from that boring hole that's very close to the foundation. You know, I don't know if you would have to get additional geotech a second time around if you didn't have enough up in this area and this was a selected location. Or if the structural engineers, even if we did a you know, comprehensive evaluation down here, whether they feel comfortable with this. You know, this whole thing is fill, and the reason it's fill, people have asked why we have stuff here, is the original plan was these were part of the master plan with playing fields, and they had to be benched, and we knew we had a lot of fill that was needed in that area. And so when there was a contractor in town that was building Jefferson Crossing that had a ton of clean fill, we said they could pile it out here, and then we would hopefully move that into that area at that time. So that's why that's there. But the geotech will have to be able to handle that, you know, building on some fill there, which isn't a big problem at all. It's just as a different type of soil.
All right. Mike, I'm going to ask you one more time before we restate your motion.
Okay, I would like to have soil studies at those 2 locations at Keller Alpine to test feasibility for a library building there.
Okay. Any other discussion? Yeah, Jerry.
Any cost estimate on the borings?
Geotechnical analysis will be anywhere, I'm gonna look back at my engineer way in the back of the room, but it's gonna be 4 to 7 thousand.
4,000 to 7,000?
Yeah.
And whose budget does that come out of?
Good question.
It continues to come out of our budget.
Well, I think we funded the wetland study because we weren't sure if we weren't sure. Nothing had been decided about this site, but we knew we had to move ahead with the wetland study prior to any kind of freezing time like we have now. But we also, if you remember in my memo there, we would discuss a possible reimbursement from the library board for that wetland study, should this be the chosen location.
Thank you.
Okay, there's a motion, a second. Any other discussion before we take a vote? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
I'm a no. All right.
And Randy, there was actually a member of the audience asked me for clarification on the motion about 249 North Main Street. And that motion did pass 4 to 3. Bollig, Belo, and Glish voted no.
Okay.
So can I clarify before we move on to make sure that we come back to future meetings with whatever information that you would like us to? So we're to do the soil borings. Earlier there was a request for drawings at different locations to show how things worked or didn't work and cost information. Is that, I don't believe that was in the form of a motion, but we do want to provide whatever information you need. Is that something that remains to be desired?
Yeah, I'd like to see that, yes.
And then is there any specific details on what, you just basically want to see different options for the library layout on those different, I guess I'm hearing that those 2 sites now at this point? Is that accurate? I guess I just want to make sure we cover all the check boxes for what you'd like us to bring back to a future meeting.
my answer is yes, yep, to that.
So I don't want to open Pandora's box, but I feel like I kind of need to say this because I sit on the Council on Aging as well. I don't know how the library board can make a decision about what a library might look like on the Brook Street site without considering what the senior center might look like on the Brook Street site. So it is really complicated. Just putting it out there.
Derek?
Carleen, like first time tonight, agreed. It is complicated, but I think the village is asking us to slow down and do just that.
So one of the things that came up in the last meeting of municipalities around the senior center is that the last time that there was a civic campus study kind of thing done for the village was in 2018, and much of what was recommended, conversations that were had, and all those kinds of things are no longer relevant. And so this is, again, opening a different box, but it seems to me that that study is referred to, or that plan is referred to a lot, and a lot of the things in it are not relevant and obsolete information. So perhaps that's actually what we're talking about. And I really don't want to be opening this box, but I don't really see a way around it because it's what keeps coming up. And I said as much in that meeting, right, Rachel, as well.
Derek?
Carleen, I would argue that the information in that plan is still relevant just based on the fact that that's in large part what the community input on this project has been thus far, is slow down.
No, there's a
and look at the
2019
downtown
study
area.
on the library that is not part of that civic campus thing of 2018. That's different than that. And
Okay, but
also part of the 2018 is the village hall, which is no longer relevant. And there's one other thing. Oh, and the fire department. You know, so there are lots of other things that we're considering here, and that 2018 study is not relevant to the decisions that we're making right now because many of those things have already happened, or they've happened in a much different order than was foreseen.
That's the reason it happened in a much different order than what was foreseen was because it was ignored.
No.
I would argue that with the move of the village hall, now that we have more space downtown, that we have no idea what we're really gonna do with it, and ultimately moving the village hall out of downtown at the expedited pace that it was, that I have a hard time seeing that master plan was considered a lot. I mean, I'm sure it was referenced and perhaps discussed a little bit. And again, I am fully supportive of that move out there for the village hall. It makes sense from a cost aspect, but I would say that right now, the community input that we've gotten from this library project mirrors in part that Civic Campus master plan when it comes to the library project and the senior center.
Can I make, well, you've had your hand up, you go ahead.
Yeah, I guess if you want pictures, we could get pictures, but I keep coming back to a $600,000 plus premium on dealing with soil issues, a 2 or 3 year delay at what's now running at 6% inflation a year, and I think construction's probably higher, but even assuming the 6%, that knocks $2,160,000 off of the value, the $12 million that the library has for its project. I'm penciling in, I don't really have a good number on this, but I'm thinking it's $300,000 to move a library and a senior center, maybe more. I don't know what it costs to move the post office, but I'm thinking there's a good chance if we build on that site that at the very least the post office will no longer end up being downtown, that they'll end up moving somewhere else. So when I add up all of these costs, there's near to a $4 million cost to the library budget, or about a third of the library budget, to study the downtown area, make it work with the senior center, and put it there. Now, $4 million is not chump change. That's a library that's a third the size of it that delivered is what we need. So it's going to be undersized, or the village is going to have to come up with $4 million more dollars more on top of what is already, as Judy pointed out, the most expensive building, the most expensive project the village has ever undertaken. And frankly, I think it's irresponsible. I think, you can talk about equity and inclusion and including poor people and seniors and all of that, but if you keep adding debt on top of the village, we won't have to worry about including them because none of them will be able to afford to live here. The debt that we're looking at in 10 years, $60 million for the village, works out to between $5,000 and $6,000 per person, no matter how old you are or how young you are, that we're in debt for. And we can't keep spending like this. This is ridiculous.
Can I respond to the civic campus thing? Because I'd like to just point out, I don't know how many of you were here when we did the Lego meetings. Yeah, some people remember that. Okay, this was before I was on the board even. And, our village planner said, let's do a downtown civic campus. Let's design this. And we had tables with maps laid out. We had Legos, and every different color Lego represented a different building. And, people got really creative, and they had the map of the downtown, and you put the Legos on it, and you'd say, if money was no object, and you just had this idea for what it would look like, what would you do? And there were some really creative ideas there. And so the village proceeded based on those plans that, which things wanted to be kept together, which things did people say they had to have downtown, and which things could be moved out. And we did all this work. And then the village moved forward based on that plan. And here's what we found. We can't do that because we tried to buy the bowling alley and they didn't want to sell, and we tried to wait for the post office to move and nothing happened, and people are hanging on to their land downtown so tightly, we are out of options. This is 5 years ago that we did this. We have to do something different. This idea of a downtown civic campus needs to change. That information, Carlene is 100% right. It is outdated based on all the tireless work. We really wanted to bring that to the community because that's what the community said they want. We can't do it. And I'm just at this point where I don't know how to convey that to people. I've been paying attention all this time, and there are people who suddenly are just like, oh, don't move the library, and it's so frustrating to me because we have to. We have to, and I'm exhausted. I don't even know what else to say anymore. This isn't something we can do. It's frustrating to me too, but that's where we are. I don't know what to do.
All right, so where are we at here? It's time to move on.
I just want to make sure, first, thank you all for the great comments and for the direction. We, as a library board, what I'm hearing is we're going to move forward with soil borings. at 2 locations. We're going to work on drawings for the downtown area potentially, some for out on Keller Alpine. I think in relation to how it would work with the senior center, we have, as you keep saying, Randy, great architects, right? We can take an idea of what you might need. We can talk to Rachel, see what they might need, and make some space plans, right? This is what a block might look like. Make some
Yes.
assumptions
Yeah.
and show you that. So we will look at that. You wanted the costs associated with that might be. We can bring you. I can't tell. They're not going to be specific costs, right? We're not. Good. It'll be rough order of magnitudes. It'll be based on experience, right? That's what
Yeah.
based off of the blocks. So that's what I heard that you're looking for. Is there anything that I missed?
Just say, Jennifer, in your conversations with the senior center, I heard a lot on 249 North Main Street just opened up. You might just want to chat with them about that.
Yeah, except for, I won't go there. Never mind.
All right. So
Thank
I think
you. I
our
think we're good.
discussion is done.
So I need a motion to adjourn the library board.
So moved.
Second.
Second by Carrie. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you so much, everyone.
All right. And so we'll take a recess for 5 minutes. Because there is somebody here who would like to speak on this item. It's 13 is the ordinance, the DEI committee. So I'd like to move that up, if everybody's okay with that. The person is here, wants to speak. All right, so Joshua, you want to come up? So everybody's okay with that? We're going to go 13I first, which is the DEI. So Joshua, tell us your name and your address, please.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. My name is Josh King. I live at 150 Joanna Circle in Bergamot. And I appreciate the opportunity to speak in front of you tonight very, very briefly about the DEI work, especially the efforts of Chief Pagenkoff. I'm not from Oregon. A lot of you guys are for your life. I'm from as far south in Louisiana as you can go. I come from a much, much more diverse background than I think most here do. Not everyone, I don't know all your backgrounds, but I would say my family and the way I grew up, we have a way of looking at each other that's a lot different, and it's as diverse as anybody that you'll see, any background that you'll see. And the reason why I'm here is because I think Chief Pagenkoff has done a fantastic job of bringing a diverse group of people together, showing the initiative herself with the police force. And it's not, I'm just saying that. I don't know if any of you were at the the initial or inaugural first responders event that was held in September 2nd, I believe. Yep, Randy was there, did a fantastic job, thank you. That was about 300 to 400 people who showed up, and of diverse nature, background, not because they wanted to just be there on a night, but because of Chief Pagenkoff. There's a lot of people there who showed up out of their own volition, who wanted to bring the community together and be part of something and see each other visually. There were hugs, there were tears, there were laughter. Kids of all different colors, races, religions were playing together. And that's very insightful when you say that someone like the chief, who took it on her own volition to bring these people together for an event where it was really centered around those in Oregon who keep us safe. So creating a culture of safety, protection, and also making sure that everyone was involved. There were side discussions, there were group discussions. A lot of people were celebrated there of many different backgrounds. So when we talk about what's going on here, I'm proud to say I know several of the people on the current committee, and we speak at my house, we have dinner, we talk about things going on in the community, and they're extremely positive about what's going on. So I just want to commend the chief on her work and hope that her efforts continue. Thank you.
All right, Joshua, thank you.
If I could just add to it,
Yeah,
I want to
sure,
thank
Chief.
Josh for hosting that event. That was a lot of work. My staff loved it, and I hope we can do it in the future. When I first met with these individuals, these were individuals that reached out to me with concerns about policing and families of color. And they wanted to know more about what exactly Oregon Police Department is and more about me. So we created these relationships. And right out of the gate, one of the things I told each one of them was the community events we have, whether it's National Night Out, Safety Day, Safety Camp, there's not a lot of diversity there. And I asked them, how can you help me change that? 'Cause I couldn't do it by myself. And it was great because these same individuals were right there in the front row of this event. And they were not only meeting me, my officers, but my family. And that was huge. So that wasn't just me connecting with them as a police chief, but me as a mom, a human being, and even my other staff. So I just want to thank Josh for helping make that happen. That was huge. And I think moving forward, we're going to see even more progress when we get to these community events. And these are events where, this was one where we're celebrating law enforcement and fire and EMS, but there's others where we're teaching safety to kids. We're offering equipment, safety equipment, bicycle helmets, and to be able to do that to the diversity in our community too. We're cresting that hill now. So I just want to thank him for speaking and talking so highly of me, but thank you too for what
It was an honor to celebrate Oregon's finest. So, and we do actually plan to do that again, bigger and better next year. So, thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, so we're on the item. We need to suspend the rules to do the waive the second and, the first and second reading. So let's take care of that first. If I can get a motion and a second to waive the readings. Jerry, I see Jerry's hand and Derek's. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Just
Oh.
one brief thing.
Yeah,
If we, when you're getting applicants for this committee and things, if we find out that we're having difficulty recruiting enough people of color and
Mhm.
things into this committee, I would like at that point that we have a discussion about perhaps reopening this up to non-residents
Okay. Yep,
and people
that's
that
fair.
are within the school
Yep.
district.
I think, you know, we wanna make sure we do this committee right, so. All right, but let's take care of the suspension. So,
All right, sorry, I have a question about this.
okay, yeah.
Oh, this
Let me
about
ask, this motion is just for suspending
Yeah,
the
okay,
yeah,
reading.
so we can
And
get to
then we're
the,
gonna have discussion.
Okay.
yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Is yours about the suspension,
Right,
Amanda?
yeah,
Okay,
yes, now
go
I'm
ahead.
with you. We're good.
All right, we're good. All right, so we got a motion and a second to suspend the rules. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, now we're on to the ordinance itself. Number 2120,
Sorry.
ordinance creating,
We're tired, yeah.
ordinance creating section 1.38 of Oregon Municipal Code regarding the creation of a diversity, equity, and inclusion committee. Staff recommendation, we did the suspension already, and the motion is to approve the ordinance as presented. Do we want to get it on the table first? All right, Derek and Amanda, all right, we got it on the table. Open for discussion.
So I have just a question.
Yeah.
I see under the powers and duties of the committee that the committee members would serve as a liaison, resource, and connection for the village and community members at large. And I know a lot of committees, not a lot of committees, but there are some committees that are like less public with putting contact information, like Planning Commission, for example. Their information is not, community members can't contact them directly. Are we gonna be able to contact these people directly somehow? Because if they're serving in that capacity, we would have to make it so that people can contact them.
Yeah, is it possible that we can make it that they could contact them somehow through the village so
Sure.
that their personal emails are not being inundated, or they might, I mean, I'd hate for somebody to be on a committee like this and somebody have a
Right.
bone to pick and then they start getting harassed in their personal email. I just don't think that's something we wanna
Yeah.
open people up to.
Agreed.
What do you think, Martin? Any?
That's what I was gonna suggest. They should contact village staff to contact them.
Yeah, have it run through the village staff.
That's kind of how we run planning commission stuff as well.
Okay. Does that sound good?
Okay, as long as it's clear, I mean, it's gotta be on the website. If you wanna contact the members or communicate with them, it has to go through the village, and then.
Or maybe
would-
there's a committee email that it goes to or
Yeah.
something like that.
That would be.
All right,
good.
we'll try to figure that
Okay.
out.
They can also provide comment at the meetings too. They can speak up at the meetings as well.
True, yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Derek, did you have
But-
something else? Okay, so we do have a motion and a second to approve the ordinance 2120.
Wait a minute. So in the composition, it says 7 members appointed by the village board president, and subject to confirmation of the village board. Maybe I didn't see it, because I did not read this carefully. I apologize for that. Is there an application process that's referred to
Yeah,
here?
Carlene, we have an application process that we use for all our committees, and Martin, I think it'll be similar. So we'll put something out on our website, let people know, and then we give them a sort of a deadline. It's like a one-pager.
Right.
What their experience is, why they want to be on the committees, that sort of thing.
And
And
then also the ordinance will be with that application, so the people will be able to see what their roles and duties are.
And I would also suggest that we ought to, actually reach out to some folks and suggest that they apply. I think that that's.
Of course, yeah.
honestly, I mean, there are a lot of people who don't regularly go to the village website and look for stuff they might be interested in.
Yeah.
And it's just not, I know, it's like maps. A lot of people don't know about that either. I mean, it's just, yeah.
All right, note taken.
So I guess kind of being proactive about reaching out to folks.
Yes. Okay, so we got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. All right, let's go back to the beginning. Let's see how fast we can get, no, I'm just kidding. We got a lot to get through tonight here. Now, so we're on to 8, which is approval of village board meeting minutes. And the recommendation is just a motion to acknowledge that the February 3rd, March 2nd, April 20th, the minutes attached are the official minutes of the said meetings. We've done this before. So anybody want to make a motion? Amanda's got one, and we'll take Luke. Okay, they were in your packet. Didn't have anything else to read, but, all right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we got that. All right.
So Randy,
Randy.
we still have to do the November 15th meeting.
Oh, okay, thank you for telling me. All right, so November 15th, 2021 minutes. So I'll take a motion and a second to approve those. All right, Mike, we'll take Mike, and then we'll take Derek. Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Thank you. Now we're on
You
schedule.
bet. Well, now we're on to 9, proclamations and announcements. A is upcoming meetings and events, which we always have a nice summary, stuff we can put in our calendars. So that was in your packet to do. We'll go to 10, which is report of village officers. Martin's got his report memorandum of what he's been up to. Anybody have any questions for Martin on his?
Glad your daughter's okay.
Yeah. All right, we'll go to 10B, which is Chief of Police report. Also, Chief's got a nice memo, but Chief, you want to say
Yeah,
anything?
I guess a couple positive things. I think we could all use a couple positive things here. We had Shop with a Cop this last Sunday, where we took 4 officers, including myself. We volunteer our time when we go shopping for Christmas presents for kiddos. We wrap them up. They don't look pretty, but we do wrap them up pretty good and deliver them. Everyone was really happy, so it was great to see. I see it's on the event calendar, but just the K-9 breakfast is coming up December 11th, 7 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. Again, K-9 Vende is retired officially. We will be having her party November 3rd from 4 to 7. Thank you very much to Public Works for letting us have it.
November 3rd?
Yeah.
November 3rd, what did I say?
It's December.
November 3rd.
November, no, that's not right. I know that was a liar, my bad. We had to reschedule that. I can get you the date. 15th,
We're
yes,
all
thank you.
tired.
November 15th.
December 3rd.
December 15th. Gosh, too much going on.
December now.
And then-
2020?
Yes, yeah.
Chief, we all been here too long already.
Yeah.
tonight, huh?
And then we're still doing a toy drive for Operation Joy, which we team up with Oregon Brooklyn Lions Club. So any toys you want to donate, brand new, please drop them off. We'd love to have them. For my training list, the only new thing was, and it was actually for me, challenges to incident command. Unfortunately, I could not attend due to some urgent matters I needed to address. And then the memo with September's activity. Unfortunately, just because I was so pressed for time, there's not a lot of notable incidents, but we did have quite a bit happen in September. And you can see the numbers in the report itself. But again, in comparison to last year, this just for the month alone, we're at 931 calls for service compared to last year 788. This is with technically 3 officers down. We have 1 on light duty and 2 we have not hired yet. We're in the process of hiring. So realistically, if we were at a full staff right now, I would say that 931 would look more like 1,200-ish. We've far exceeded the calls for service for the year already, and I'll bring you a final year report probably in January, depending on availability. And then just some noteworthy items, and one of them was the red, white, and blue celebration that we talked about earlier, which was great, and some other notable meetings I went to. I'd be happy to answer any questions on those.
Okay, anything for Chief? Yeah, Derek?
Again, thanks for the updated training information. It's always appreciated. Just for the one that you weren't able to attend, is that something that gets rescheduled, or how does that?
I hope so. He's an
Okay.
excellent trainer, but he's high in demand. So we'll see if I can get back to it. I certainly will.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? All right. Let's go to 10C, which is Elise's report. Elise, how come yours is so much shorter than Martin's? What's going on there?
He's much more productive than me.
Yeah, yeah. So Elise, can I just, and Amanda's here too, we kind of met with Bill Schaefer of Madison, the MPO, and it's kind of related to that, hopefully our transportation committee, and I think it was a really good a Zoom call that we had, and I think there's a lot of potential stuff for us, so that was a good Zoom call. Elise, anything else on there that you'd like to highlight, or are you good?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay, anybody have any questions for Elise? I gotta look, because usually, Carlene, I can't see you too, if you have your hand up, but I can see it. All right.
I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna wear brighter colors.
All right. All right, we're on to 10D, which is the wetland delineation report, former elementary school site at corner Alpine Parkway and Highway CC. The big report was in our packet. Jeff, you want to give us a quick?
Yeah, I just wanted to really quickly thank Rupert Milky was able to actually, with positive weather, and they were able to wrap up another big project. They were able to fit in the complete and full wetland delineation for this site this year. If you remember, they were going to do a kind of a desktop. Thought they were going to be able to do a desktop and then do the full in the spring, and instead they were able to do the whole thing now. So this is an assured delineation, and it's good for 5 years. You can see in the areas where we're at here north is to the right. And just to quell any fears of any kind of construction project that would be out here, typically around wetlands, you'll require extra measures to be done during construction, including double rows of silt fencing and any kind of other protection that does keep equipment and materials out of delineated wetlands. So, any question on the wetland study?
Yeah, Amanda.
Just because I'm terrible with scale sometimes, I'm just trying to envision how big 4 acres would be, like, if you put it on. I mean, that's.
This is, the green hatched area is 6.8 acres.
And realistically, how close could we build to it? Like, I mean, I'm trying to figure out if it might be elongated, or, you know.
Wetland buffer is 50 feet?
100 in that area, I
Yeah.
believe.
In that area, okay. I know it changes based on.
Wait, I take that back. The small area, the small wetland area to the south was, it was either 100 or 75, and the
Yeah.
other was 25 feet
Yeah.
less.
So,
Whoa.
But yeah, like Amanda, the dark, I know it's a little
Yeah, 'cause there
confusing
were-
orientation too, because north is on the right side of the page rather than the top of the page here, but, yeah, the dark area is kind of consistent with what we've shown as a potential outline for a library site in that region, and it could avoid all those delineated
Okay.
areas easily, and not getting, closer down to that pond too at the south end is not the ideal spot to be
And
either,
then,
so
could I
there's-
just ask a question, as long as it's up here? If the library were to go up here where Mike was suggesting,
yes.
then could this area perhaps be converted to prairie?
It'll be wetland. We can't really do anything with the wetland
No, I
without
don't mean the
mitigation.
wetland part, I mean the part that's not the wetland, that's just.
That's above it, right here?
Yeah, right there.
You know, it's whatever the village board wants to do with it. I mean, we purchased it for $238,000, something like that. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
All right, anybody else? All right. All
Any
right.
surprises in the wetland report from
No.
your point of view?
No. In fact, and I think this wetland is actually probably long-term, a little more artificially created from this berm that was put along here over time. But that's the only thing I noticed from the photos, but no, everything looks good.
Okay, good. Thank you, Jeff.
You're welcome.
All right, so we're on to 10E, which is Village Department Head Staff or Consultant Comments. Lisa, I do have one for you. Is next week we're going to open up our mailbox and get our tax bill?
We're still working with the county on getting those finalized.
Okay.
Hopefully they'll be in the mail soon. They have to be out by the 3rd Monday of the month.
Yeah, okay.
Statutorily.
And I think we said this before during budget time, but Martin confirmed for me, we are going to do a little half sheet so that, because anytime people get their bill, they think it's all us. You know, when they see their tax bill and they blame us. So we still may get emails because some people aren't going to be happy. But I think we have done a half sheet where it sort of says this much goes to this, the MATC. So maybe that alleviates.
We have a pie chart actually on the tax insert that shows the proportions.
Okay,
based
good.
on percentages for each of the taxing jurisdictions.
Hopefully they look at that before they want to call us.
It's a full sheet, front and back.
Yeah, it's a
All
full
right,
sheet.
very
Full
good.
sheet.
They can't miss it.
Great.
Excellent. Anybody else? Any other department head or staff or anything? Seeing none, okay, let's keep moving along. F is village comments, village board comments, sorry, 10F. Anybody? Okay, let's go to 11, communication miscellaneous, approval of vouchers. Let's get that first and second on the table, and then we can take any questions. All right, Jerry and Mike, okay, on the table. Who's got some questions?
Looks good.
Jerry, wow. Mike, did you have one?
Nope.
Okay. Yeah, Luke's got one,
Got
good.
one that jumped off the page.
All right.
And more curiosity than anything, but 13,148, $633 for water training at the Radisson Hotel. And I'm wondering if that was a fire department thing or?
No, that's probably under the credit card.
Yeah, it was credit card.
Yeah, no, that was, I think 3 nights, for a annual, conference for training for our, water individuals, our water staff.
Oh, okay, so it was a conference?
Conference,
Okay.
yes, yep.
Okay.
I heard water at a hotel, I thought maybe there was a pool.
No,
involved
no,
or
it's just
something.
conference charges.
All right, thank you.
All right, Amanda's got one.
They're training for their licensing and stuff.
Or a comment.
What, yeah, so, this might be a really dumb question, I am tired. 6355, the quarterly cable payment. Is that us paying out to cable, or is that incoming money? Like, are we paying this, is this OCA Media?
Which
or
one
what?
is it? What number, Amanda?
335 quarterly cable payment.
That's the quarterly payment to OCA Media.
From us to OCA Media?
Correct.
Okay. Just, I just was, jumped out at me and I thought, wait, what?
All right, so we got a motion in the second, and the amount, I should say, it's $713,812.27. So Candy, voice vote, please.
Wunsch,
Yes.
Foley,
Yes.
Stitch,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Fashion,
Yes.
Glish,
Yes. Okay. On to 10B, presentation by Sketchworks on the proposed new Village Hall, 101 Alpine Parkway remodel project. We'll be looking for a motion to approve the plans and authorize the bidding project. Jeff, how do you want to handle this one? Nothing, or?
No, I just,
Okay.
I mean, I think we can have Sketchworks, Nick with Badura with Sketchworks Architecture and Matthew Heil with,
Lots of good
Oh.
pictures and things in our package.
I'm sorry, Matthew. Tailored Engineering, thank you, are here, and just to let you know, I mean, this is an exciting time, and I think, we were talking about earlier, it is obviously an opportunity for a new village hall for us, and we've been working with them on concepts, ideas, appearance, and everything like that. And they're here to kind of present where they're at with it, kind of a high-level approach to where things are.
Okay. Gentlemen.
Thank you. Hi, Nick with Sketchworks. Jeff, would you mind going to maybe the plan set first? And is that in there? Probably after
I'll find it. Here, don't look. Nobody look. Okay. Nobody look.
Go
Okay.
quick. Okay, yeah, there we go. All right, so what you're looking at here, you can go right to that one. You're looking at a demolition plan right there. So the dashed lines, if you can read them, around kind of the perimeter of the circular area is what we're removing, and the some of the existing teller areas. So we're trying to minimize the amount of demolition we have to do on the project to reuse it for the village hall purpose. So we can probably move on to the next one. On the second floor of the existing building, we're just taking out some walls that enter what will become the new boardroom at the top where the cursor is, and the new community room at the bottom. So minimal demolition in this case for the goal of the new rooms, so we can keep moving on. This is just the basement level, not much to be done there. So in the new floor plan, we're straightening out the wall at kind of the top end of the page, kind of where that curved section was, creating conference rooms, some offices. They're all designated with the employees that will be working there. Another main component is the entrance at the bottom of the screen is going into a secure lobby area, which will be protected and have a counter with security glass from one side to the other, where transactions can take place over the countertop surface. So right where Jeff's pointing there will be on the secure side, on the inside. And kind of the center section contains some of the kind of open office areas, main reception in the center, kind of a copy area to the right where the cursor is, and then the building inspection will be on the left side. And you'll see a furniture plan in a bit that'll give a little more context to that. On the second floor is kind of the space for the boardroom at the top of the screen, and the community room at the bottom. And Jeff, maybe you want to just jump to the furniture plans further down.
All over the place here, yeah, okay. Hang on.
Yeah, they're further down, I think. They're towards
they
the
are?
end.
Still?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they're way at the end.
Reflected ceiling plans.
Yep. Ceiling plans. We got a lot of plans in here. There we go. All right, so I think this gives a good context for that first floor, kind of where all the desks will go, where conference rooms will go. I guess I'm going kind of fast. Is there any questions as to what we're looking to do?
Martin, Jeff, you had said we have 6 or 7 open spaces for growth. Is that correct, for office spaces?
Correct.
Martin, how long does that project out for staff?
That's a good question. I guess I don't know. I mean, I think we've talked up here that in the next 2 or 3 years, we may need an additional position. But beyond that, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
So it could be a long, long way.
Yeah, I would imagine so.
Plus, we have, like we said, the upstairs area. We have tenants. We have tenant spaces down here and tenant spaces upstairs that are not permanent tenants necessarily. We'd like to keep them as long as we can, and then also we have the Chamber of Commerce area, which is a area we will be giving to them rent-free, but it's not a permanent house either, so.
Okay.
Just some other items to note, maintaining the drive-through. One of the lanes of the drive-through from the bank will be maintained, and the other 2 lanes will be utilized for storage, enclosing that kind of overhang area as part of the building.
Can I ask, is that, I don't know, staff, is that one open, kind of like going to be our Dropbox type thing?
Yes.
Yeah,
There's
I
an
figured so.
existing Dropbox already right
Okay,
there.
all right.
And do the ATMs stay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. Probably move to the second floor. We're looking at the boardroom at the top with all the seating arrangement there. There's kind of a back exit for the board members kind of through the community room, which was a feature that they had talked about early on incorporating. In the community room, we'll have some new cabinetry and casework, kind of a small kitchenette space as part of that. And then the Chamber of Commerce is that one in the bottom right corner, which will be building out to kind of a white box level. So just kind of finishing it off. So it's still pretty unfinished currently.
A couple questions on this area.
Sure.
That island from the kitchenette, that's a pass-through, I'm assuming?
Yeah, you can walk around that whole, yeah, it's an island.
Okay. The second is up in the, I know you're probably not doing the audio-visual components of this, but up in that boardroom area, one of those monitors has a limited view, so there's only a small portion of the audience that can actually see it. That room, I don't know how deep that room is, but I'm assuming it's quite a ways back. 2 monitors is not enough if if we're actually displaying printed material, like I can't read what's up on that monitor right now. And lastly, because we want to have a hybrid meetings, it would be really good if we had a monitor that faced the board so we can actually see people on the other end of the meeting.
I agree with those comments, for the record.
And the rest is just some interior elevation.
Yeah,
So
we don't. It should be important to note that we've been working with the police department. As you know, our current setup has a 0 security level. Would you agree to that, Jenny?
Yep.
And unfortunately, more and more today, we need more and more of a secure space for our staff and everything. So that's the whole reason of having to have that entryway and access control doors, fob controlled access back to our secure area of the village hall. So it is going to bring an expense, but right now, other than what we have very limited security in our current facility.
Yeah. With that in mind, on the community room on the 2nd floor, is that going to be set up so that can be rented with the rest of the building locked down?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, these will have access control that we can program for weekend use, hand out a fob, and it's only good for that certain amount of time period for that person. And the other part of security is we did insist on a secondary exit for board members in the event of an active shooter type of thing. And so that's why we have this secondary exit here, out to the stairwell. Because right now, I think it was one of the safety features that was that Jansen?
Jeremy.
Jeremy Hatfield did a very nice kind of safety analysis several years ago on this building, and basically just kind of said, this is not an ideal situation where you really don't have any way out. So.
Jeff, the memo says that the bids exceed 25,000?
Oh, yeah. No, it's because the bids exceed 25,000, we have to go out for competitive bid.
Right. What is the cost of this?
Well, we're working on that. We don't have that yet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So are you ditching all the workstations and everything that's in the building now?
Not all of it. A lot of the desks we are, and we're working with the interior person on that right now. A lot of the desks in the bank, and I can pull up some pictures maybe at some time, but are not, the offices and the storage in those offices are not suited as well for our purposes. In other words, they have almost no storage. And banks work almost totally after being electronic, or you have a file for an hour or two and then it goes back to the loan officer or something like that. Whereas we have much more need for file space and storage. So
Have you checked with the other departments to see if maybe they could use some of this equipment?
We will be, but,
Okay.
yeah, we've kind of filled out all the offices in the village in the last, remember with our Oscar Meyer Hall?
Yes, I
couple-
recall.
Yep. Do you wanna do that one presentation?
Yeah, we could just quickly look at the interiors.
Yeah, so this is, all right, you're on.
Yeah, so I know some of the things, Michelle is one of our consultants for interior design, was to incorporate some of the existing materials with a little more of a neutral contemporary palette. There's a lot of existing wood trims that's stained, so I know she's trying to tie that in to kind of not have to replace a lot of what's there and use what's there to improve it. So these are some of the materials. We're looking at broadloom carpeting. Yeah, so that picture on the left is some of that nice woodwork they have in the space. So changing some of the existing wall coverings to just paint. So those are some of those selections. Also seeing some lighting fixtures that will modernize the space. There's some pictures of this just talking about. And this was just looking at some ideas for workstation design. For the new entrance, kind of incorporating branding for the village hall, kind of as you walk into that center reception desk we were talking about. An example on the right there is kind of a way to screen to what's behind there and kind of also provide kind of a focal point as you walk in that isn't here right now, but I think you can make as part of this remodel space. So that's kind of a picture of that front reception desk and some of those materials and where they tie in. Restrooms still just, we're talking about replacing fixtures and countertops.
And really just mirrors and paint, and then bottom treatment of this. We're keeping the same tile.
Yep,
And
trying
the
to
same dividers. We're really trying to do as minimal as we can do in the bathrooms, but still freshen them up a little bit.
Right. So just overall, with the direction of trying to keep a lot of what's there from a budget standpoint and just kind of enhance what's already going on in the space.
I'm seeing a lot of them in the photo, some of the sample photos, not of the bathroom, but previous, like, you know, of like some very modernistic furniture. And the pictures aren't for the furniture in the, like, whatever lobby area or whatever you want to call it. I don't.
Oh, no.
Like,
No.
none of that, we're not
No,
doing
no,
that.
no.
That was for the lighting, right?
No,
Yeah,
this
that was
is-
more for the lights.
Okay,
Yeah.
just checking.
Yes.
Yeah, just some lighting elements that would be above tables, long file cabinet tables like this and this, to try to add just some lighting as well as just to soften the area a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's just a few decorative lighting areas that we're talking about.
Okay. Yeah,
And
because those chairs don't look comfortable at all. I'm just gonna say probably don't want to go there.
Yeah, these.
I agree with you.
Yeah, that's not like
Yeah.
fun.
But this is flooring for community room.
Yep.
We've kind of gone towards this direction, looking for something really durable.
Yeah, something really durable, washable.
In that color, doesn't that show a lot of dirt?
I think with the material, it's a very hard cleanable material, so I think.
It's not carpeting?
No,
No.
no,
Okay,
it's
okay,
not.
got it.
No, we don't want carpet in that room,
Yeah.
because that's gonna have red punch and
Right,
all sorts of stuff.
exactly.
Yeah, okay.
And then, go ahead on this.
Yeah.
This is-
Yeah, and just more kind of these are carpet tiles that can be interspersed with each other to create patterns, like the image on the right uses those three colors to kind of tie them together in different ways, so we can have a pattern made that gets a little more interest in space than just a swath of carpeting.
More interesting than this. I like the dots.
No.
You can have it, Carlene.
Hey,
it's
it's
Yeah.
better than
That-
what's in my basement
We'll cut
now.
a slab out for you.
That-
Yeah.
That wall slab, the one back up, that one.
Yeah, we're not gonna do that.
Thank you.
But
Saw that too, and I was like,
Just for acoustic.
It just
Right.
for acoustic treatment within the boardroom, it's such a large space that they might use some panels on some of the walls that just help absorb some of it helps for
Yeah.
recording
Oh, yeah.
and everything too.
But in the colors down here, those
Yeah.
little squares.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Right, you can have a real simplified version of that.
These are the chairs that are in Martin's office right here. You want something Jetson theme?
I don't want to look at that during the board meeting.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Was there
Can't
anything
get
else?
behind that, but anyway, we're good.
So they're working on wrapping up the kind of the final design. We'll be working with them in the next, we talked about, we have a couple meetings this week on starting to look at some of the costs and if we have to start to cut some things out or look at cost saving issues, because believe it or not, this project is just like every other project. And then ideally, we're looking at a January bid and closing of the bid, I believe in January, early February.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, probably about 4 weeks.
Right, and so I think your motion is just to allow us to go through the bidding process. It's not committing us to anything other than what we've already committed to with Sketchworks and their engineers. And, you know, we will get the bids back, and at that time, you will bring those back before the village board and say, with a recommendation either to hire a general contractor to do this work or to retool or whatever we have to do.
All right, so the motion actually is to approve the plans, Jeff, and authorize the bidding. Both,
Okay.
okay? Anybody? All right, Luke and
Second.
Derek, any other comments, questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Nice job.
11C, 2022 purchase of services agreement between Dane County and Village of Oregon for the Oregon Area Senior Center Program and Services. And Rachel, tell me if my notes are wrong, but looks,
Well, do you think this one will be long?
what?
Do you think this one will be long, or do you?
I don't know, ask Rachel.
No reason for this to be long. The
Okay,
county wants to
okay,
give us money.
We have one other engineer still here, and that's why it was just.
Oh, okay, that's, maybe you can talk her in, so Rachel, my notes say $111.704, is that right?
111,000.
Thousand, sorry, yeah.
704.
Okay,
Correct.
do you want to say anything? We have a nice big fat packet.
Well, if you took the time to read through that whole purchase of service agreement, which is very long, congratulations, thank you. You know a lot more now than you did before.
Yes.
This is what the county offers to us for 2022 to support a whole bunch of the different programs that the senior center offers. Their contribution of over $111,000 is tremendous. It's a commitment. It shows the commitment of the county to human services programs, and we appreciate that from the county very much, together with the support of the village and the townships that are our contractual partners. We're able to offer a lot to our local older adults. And so this memo, this cover memo breaks it down for you. You can see what services are being supported at what level. And if you've got any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them. But if you don't, if you've read it, you probably don't want to hear any more.
I do have one
Yeah.
question, and that is just, are there things being provided this year that were not provided last year? Is there any real change? I guess that's the, That's the
There's
question.
not any real change, but it was very interesting. This year, the county chose to fund all three requests that the Aging Network made of the county executive and the county board, which was to increase case management funding, to increase management for the meal sites, and then to provide additional funding for meals. So normally, when we ask the county to provide additional funding, we usually ask for 3 different things, and we feel very fortunate if they select one of those. And this year, they opted for all 3, which
Awesome.
was wonderful.
That's great.
Mike, you had something?
Yeah, so that was kind of my question, is compared to last year where, you know, how does this funding compare? And you're saying that's considerably more, or?
It's greater than it was a year ago, yes.
Having read the entire thing in all of its minutia, you're worth every penny you get to follow all that paperwork. Oh my gosh.
Thank you, the staff does a great job.
And Dane County has been very generous to us, haven't they?
Dane County
Yeah.
has a real commitment to
Yes.
human services. Tax bills are high, but services are good.
Okay.
That's awesome.
Can-
Thanks, Rachel.
Thank you.
Candy, did I do a motion?
I don't have.
All right, good. Can we have a motion and a second to approve? Mike and Carleen? All right, any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
Thank you.
All right, Jeff.
Sorry.
Hold on, we're on to your engineering stuff now, so you're good. All right, so we're on to 11D, task order number 2021-808, agreement professional services. Rupert Milky right-of-way services for Janesville Street and South Perry Parkway intersection. Jeff is recommending that we approve this. Jeff, do we need to say anything? Should we just go do it?
No, I think we're good. It's just, we're hoping for a very simplified way of doing this. I've talked to the adjacent landowners, and they seem open to this, but it's always, you don't know until you're into where they have to sign on the dotted line. But Rupert Milky's done this work for us in the past, and I think their overall contract for the basic services is lower, and if we have to do detailed work on any of the other properties, it's still cheaper in the long run than if we were willing to go with MSA.
Okay,
Both are good outfits, so.
all right. Can we get a motion? A second? All right, Luke and Amanda. Any other discussion? Otherwise, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, Jeff, you're up again. Task order 2707 is basically, looks like an additional $27,611 amendment. Am I right?
Yes, correct.
For well number 6. Do you need to say anything on that, Jeff?
Well, this is, well number 6 has been on our books for a long time, and it's actually, as Highlands of Netherwood has evolved. We originally had the well site right next to the Presbyterian church out there, where those small lots are right across from the park. And it's since moved, and so there's been some design changes, some permitting changes. Time just has, Jason, how long have we been working on this? 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so they've been very patient with us and everything, but there's, changes that have come along, and this is a way that we can catch up their scope of services with the direction we're going. We now have a lot in Highlands and Netherwood, which is up on the higher end of the subdivision in phase, what is that, Jason, 4 or 5? Jason's with Rupert Milky here. He's, I think it's phase 4, and that will be a pump house and well that'll be built up there. And
Okay.
So we're ready to move ahead with that, and Jason here, if you have any questions or anything.
Okay. All right, can we get a motion and a second on this one? Amanda and Luke. Any other discussion? Otherwise, all in favor say aye.
No, it's okay.
Aye.
Aye.
I'm sorry, Carleen, did you have a question? Did I miss you?
No.
Okay,
We were joking.
all right. All right, let's go to F, which is, Jeff, one more here. Looks like, Park and Janesville Street intersection, project change order. Looks like $44,812.12. Change order and payment.
Yes, this is what's done at the end of every project. So it's not a change order of $44,812. It is just the final payment.
Okay.
And that is the truing of all the numbers and everything like that. I think it was, the initial contract price was $1,969,000. The final, with the change orders and everything, is $1,935,000. So it's actually less overall than what our contract price was. And that happens on unit price contracts sometimes. That's what you want to happen.
But Jeff, we are approving the 44, is that right?
Yes,
Okay,
it's just
all
the
right.
final payment of that.
All right, all right. Can we get a motion and a second on this one? Amanda and Carleen, I see your hand this time. All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, okay. Jeff, this is probably yours too, and then maybe you can go home, I don't know. Is G, request to dispose of surplus items at the new Village Hall, 101 Alpine. Staff recommendation, motion to approve as presented. And I think maybe Mike asked this too. I mean, have you asked to see if anybody can use any of this stuff, Jeff?
Well, we are.
You are, okay.
This just gives us you've given us the authority to make those decisions and find homes for,
Yeah,
you know, orphan desks and
Yep,
and
yep.
items and that type of stuff.
okay. How about a motion and a second? Derek and Amanda, any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we're making progress.
Thank you.
We're on to I, which is contract with People's United Methodist Church for election polling location in 2022. Looks like, Candy, if I have my notes, $700 to utilize the church as a polling place. Pretty self-explanatory. We'll take a motion in a second. Yeah, Amanda and Mike? Okay, any discussion, questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. J, request to extend closure of the Village Hall on the second and fourth Tuesdays of the month in 2022 for moving preparations. We'll take a staff's recommending we approve as presented. Take a motion from Mike and Carleen. Okay, any questions?
Yes,
right.
how's that coming, Candy?
It is coming. The staff has done a great job of pulling together during those days, and we tackled quite a bit. We've gotten rid of quite a bit of stuff, and it's been, you know, copies of copies. So we're making a lot of progress. We've got a lot of the rooms cleared out down here, ready to be moved, but there's a lot more.
Are you on schedule?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. I can't answer that truthfully, because there's a lot of stuff.
Okay.
But we're making progress, and you'll probably see a surplus list here, just like Jeff had, because we have some stuff here that is, you know, we probably won't need, but we'll make sure that, to see if any other departments need it, but, yeah.
Two things. I think Candy's underselling it a little bit. They've done a phenomenal job. So much as that we had pelletory shredding trucks, 2 of them
Yeah.
out front shredding the first round of stuff that they had already gone through and determined that we didn't need to keep anymore. And then secondly, just last Thursday, I was working on a project out of the blue on a sanitary sewer system problem we were having for one of the condominium developments. I couldn't find anything in our property files or anything like that, and then I said, well, wait, Candy, and the staff have been doing a whole idea of alphabetizing by street and everything like that. I went down there and within 5 to 10 minutes had found a set of plans and everything that I need. I never would have been able to find that without the work they're doing. So
Excellent.
they're doing an outstanding work, and she's underselling you on how much that they're doing.
Sorry.
All right.
The staff is doing a great job.
There you go.
They are.
Thank you.
Good. Yeah,
All right,
it's
let's have a
smart.
motion in a second. Move this along.
Did we-
Mike and Jerry. Jerry,
Excellent.
all right. Any other discussion? Otherwise, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. K, resolution number 2154, adopting 2022 salary schedule. Martin, looks like 2% increases for non-union positions, if I did my homework. And the staff recommendation is to approve as presented. Need a motion in a second? We can open it up. Luke and Derek, anybody have questions for Martin or Lisa or anybody? Okay?
I do.
Yeah,
Does
Carleen.
2% match cost of living increases?
No, probably not. Not based on what we're seeing for COLA.
And
All
is-
right. Kenny, I did
I
the
was just gonna, this is,
first and second.
Yep,
Okay, I'm getting tired too, it's almost my bedtime.
These percentages are getting us up to speed with,
Probably not.
no, these are
No,
still
we're still
not.
behind.
Okay.
That's why we're gonna be doing the salary study,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and that's why we
Okay.
have the money in
Okay.
contingency to hopefully make adjustments towards the end of the year,
Yeah.
based on what the salary study shows.
Mike?
Okay.
Yeah, I think we're actually, instead of catching up, I think we're falling behind.
Yeah.
Given, and that's not only here, but I'm seeing that where I work and in other businesses, is no one's prepared for 6% inflation, this year. I would hope next year we find room in the budget and with the salary study and the contingency funds that we can make our employees whole and not, run the village on their backs.
Yeah. Agreed.
Okay. All right, we got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. On to L, setting village interest rates for advances at 0.25% for 2021. Lisa, I don't know if you want to say anything or self-explanatory for you.
It's just something that we annually do. We only have one advance left, and that is from the general fund to TID 4. And most of the expense there is for the creation of TID 4.
Okay. All right, motion and a second. Somebody? Amanda? Luke? All right, any other discussion? All in favor, say
Excuse
aye.
me?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't see you.
Does this mean at a 0.2, what is this, 0.25% rate, that we're essentially subsidizing TID 4 even more than we already have? Because it only pays us back at 0.25%, correct?
This is the interest rate that we're charging them on their outstanding balance of the advance from general fund to the TID.
But we're paying more than that if we had to borrow that. Is that correct?
Yes. Oh, yes.
So in essence, we're underwriting TID 4 by giving them a lesser interest rate.
Yeah, this was all in place from when the TID was created. I don't remember what year it was created. So hopefully
You're suggesting I don't stir waves up here.
Well, we hope that it'll begin to cash flow at some point where we can actually start paying back some of the principal balance too.
Yeah, but we're not owed the principal, we're not owed the interest balance because we haven't charged them that much interest. So they're not gonna be paying us back as much as our costs were because we're actually paying more for the money than we're giving it to them for. So they will never pay us back completely out of the TID because we've taken and given them cheap loans. Is that correct?
Correct. Well, if we didn't borrow the money either, it was taken out of our fund balance.
I know, but we borrow from elsewheres to offset things. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't.
Okay.
Sure.
I'm unprepared to do anything for this. I just am asking because I just thought.
All right, so we got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, opposed. All right, Chief, we got a couple for you here, looks like. M is revisions to the Oregon Police Department's vehicle towing policy, recommended to approve. Chief, I do have one question for you. Do you remember a couple months ago we had that problem with that camper?
Yes.
A camper on the, does this address any?
No.
It does not?
No, that would have to be an ordinance change.
Okay.
To address that.
So what I'm referring to is that the couple months ago, somebody left a camper, if you saw it, maybe on the vacant culvers. And I think, Chief, we tried to contact the owners. They wouldn't do anything with it, so they just left it there. And the only way that we could get it off the property was that Dan Bertler had to pay for the towing privately to get it off the property. So,
Yeah, so how ordinance reads is that there has to be a violation that exists for us to tow the vehicle. And because there's no signage up there that says,
yeah,
no trespassing, no parking without permit or something like that, that restricts us. Campers are a challenge to begin with anyway, though.
Okay.
Because it's unfortunately becoming somewhat of a common thing that people will park a camper they don't want anymore and just leave it.
Yeah.
And if it's in a parking lot, a lot of tow companies won't come down to tow it because it's at their expense. First of all, they have to bring down a larger rig to tow it, but then also nobody comes to claim it, and most of these are not salvageable. And so then they're stuck with it and have to deal with the cost of having it destroyed.
Yeah.
So, it's, while yes, you want an ordinance to help people with that, the problem with it is you also don't want Village of Oregon to become a dumping ground for campers then,
Right.
too,
And
at the expense of
Chief, do you know how much it cost him to have that towed by any chance?
I don't.
I think it was probably a pretty good chunk.
Yeah, I would say
Yeah.
a hefty, probably over $1,000 easily. Maybe
Wow.
Jeff has a better idea.
No, I don't know.
Wow, okay.
So,
All right.
what's the remedy then? Does he take him to small claims court? How does he get that money back from them?
Yeah, that's something he would have to discuss with legal counsel.
I mean, but that's like the only type of remedy there is for that? Wow, that's terrible.
Yeah, that was very frustrating for him. I mean, he wanted it off. Culver's is getting ready to purchase the property, and here's this camper that is just dumped there, and the guy didn't want it.
Yeah, we had another similar case about a year and a half ago where a woman gave permission for someone to park her camper in a parking lot on another property, and it was the same unfortunate issue, is per ordinance, there's no violation there, it's private parking. And this is very similar in other communities. Private parking is that property owner's problem. But then some tow companies will not tow either, because it's the private owner requesting and not the owner of the camper. So it gets complicated. My best advice is do not give permission to someone to park something on your property unless you really don't know them and know that they will do right by you.
Okay.
All right, so let's,
And Randy, if I could add, but if it's
You
on the
bet.
roadway, that's different.
Okay.
Okay.
That's 24-hour storage and other things apply.
Okay.
So I just wanted to make that clear.
all right,
that
yes,
there's
thank you.
difference
So,
there.
so if there's a vehicle that hasn't moved in, like, was it 24 hours?
Correct.
You can have it towed.
Well, we start
Or
marking it.
you start it,
and
that's
then
right,
we'll
there's a
start working with the
process.
owner.
Yeah.
And keep in mind, some of these situations, there's an emergency in the family.
Yeah,
Or something
yeah.
like that, and people are very responsive to help
Yes.
just moving the
Yeah.
vehicle or
Yeah.
whatever it is.
All right, so Chief has got a few changes to the towing policy. She's looking for a recommendation for us to approve, the changes, and I think they were in red, Chief,
Yes.
if I remember right.
So, I have a question.
Yeah,
on-
Carleen.
Under number 3, it says the list maintained by Dane County, and then so on page 8, was that our list before, and now we're using Dane County's list?
Yeah, so the backstory is my predecessor came from a department where that agency had their own dispatch center, so they maintained their own list of records. Dane County Dispatch is our resource to ask for a record. They will not hold a list specific to Oregon, just like they wouldn't for McFarland or Verona.
Right.
It's just they're too big.
Okay.
This actually works out better because this way, the tow companies that are registered with Dane County Communications, we're all requesting them throughout, the day, 24/7, 7 days a week. So then they don't feel like, well, Oregon's only requesting these, and then Verona's only requesting these. We're all requesting from the same list, and it
Got
just
it.
simplifies it.
Makes sense. Thank you.
All right, yeah, Mike?
Just a quick comment on page 468, item number 4. I guess that would be page 3 if you looked at the printed version, the very bottom of the page. You're still referencing the record call list?
Yeah, because now it's just referred to as the Dane County Record Call List.
Oh, okay, so the 3 places that you referenced that you intended to.
Right,
Never
it's
mind
just
then.
generalizing it more than
Okay.
anything.
All right,
And then the other tow policy was the criminal justice information system.
all right, Chief,
Oh,
we'll
sorry.
take Candy, did I do a motion?
There's no motion.
All right, so we're gonna do M first. Let's do a motion and get rid of this. Jerry and Amanda? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, Chief, now you can talk to N, about N.
So the CIGIS policy, we're audited every year. CIGIS works in a way where they just audit you, and then so there's new requirements they come up with as they audit you. So that is why you see the slight modification in the policy. We're gonna validate annually the department's list of authorized users, so we can meet those standards, besides just qualifications and audit moving forward.
Okay. Can we get a motion and a second on this one? Amanda and Luke? Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Chief, looks like you got one more on computers.
Yes.
You just want to get rid of some computers, looks
Yes,
like.
outdated.
Okay, staff recommendation is to approve as presented. Go to surplus. Yeah, Amanda
Make
and
a
Jerry?
motion.
Any discussion? Yeah, Mike?
Yeah, are the disk drives on these wiped or
Yeah, so
shredded?
as soon as we get the blessing from you guys, we turn them over to Computer Magic, our IT department, and they take care of them.
Okay, but they are all the data, they make
Yes.
sure it's all gone?
Yep.
Okay.
All right, so motion and a second. I have. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we're moving along. We're on to 12. Reports of committees. Items are for discussion, possible action. First one is 12A, resolution number 2153, naming Autumn Ridge subdivision parkland as Gary Dish Park. I think most of us know Gary. Yeah, we'll take a motion in a second. Amanda, Luke, any other discussion? Yeah, Jerry.
Was Gary contacted about this before?
That's a good question.
Yes, he was.
He was, okay.
The park board contacted him, yep.
Good.
All
I
right,
hate to have
yeah.
him disappointed. I know his Jeff's predecessor didn't want anything to do with any naming stuff, you know?
Amanda, did you have a comment? Amanda?
Yeah, I know Gary lives in my neighborhood. And
Yeah.
I'm just
Great
really
guy.
upstanding guy,
Yeah.
and this is a good idea. I support it.
It's a great idea.
Great idea.
Yeah, and just, this is out, this whole
Out by
development is
you.
out my kitchen window.
Yeah.
They installed streetlights today, watched 3 of them go in, one up at the top of the cul-de-sac, one about halfway down on what would be the right side as you're looking at the picture, and one at the corner down at the bottom by the stop sign. So it's
Yeah.
paved.
So hopefully, Carlene, they're gonna start the fundraising for the park equipment.
Yeah, I think that's great.
Yeah.
The only complaint I have is on this street over here that they didn't pave. They put these gravel barriers, and we were like, this is gonna be the best sledding hill in the whole village. And now it's got, well, maybe now we can have jumps, you know, or something. Anyway, I'm sure it's so that people wouldn't drive up there, but.
All right, we got a
Great sledding
motion.
hill.
We got a motion and a second on the table. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Good for Gary. 12B is Plan Commission, ordinance number 21, and it's, I see 2 X's there, Martin, which is, it's supposed to be something, right?
It's updated on the actual agenda. You're probably looking at the draft I gave you.
Oh, yes, okay. Well, you guys see it.
21.
All right, good. Got it, okay. The GDP plan to allow planned development zoning at 1053 and 1075 Park Street. Plan Commission and staff recommendation, so we'll do a, suspend the rules for this one again first, waive in first, second readings, and then we'll approve the motion. So if I can have a first and a second, Mike and Amanda to suspend the rules. All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, and let's take the ordinance then, 2121, to approve as presented. I'll look for a motion from Derek and Mike. I see Mike's hand. Any discussion on this one? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, carries, good. B2, 12B2, specific plan for culverts at 1053 and 1075 Plant Street, Park Street. Plan Commission staff recommendation is to approve as approved, so we're approving the SIP plan for them. If I can get a motion and a second. Luke and Amanda, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I do know Culver's has closed on their property, so.
When did that happen?
I got it, actually, Craig Culver sent me an email. It was about maybe a week before Thanksgiving.
Excellent.
So now, I think this is actually it.
Yeah.
Yep.
All the approvals, so we should, maybe we'll see some things starting to happen, which is
Probably
great.
spring, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Excellent.
All right, 12B3, condominium plat for the Villas condo development on the corner of Highway CC and Peterson Trail in the Highlands of Netherwood subdivision. Planning Commission and staff recommendations. Motion is to approve the final plat for that one.
As it was with the condition of the final approval by the village engineer and fire department.
Okay, I didn't see that. Okay. Can we get a motion and a second on that one? Amanda and Luke? Okay, any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. 12B4, extraterritorial certified survey map for property near 5275 Lincoln Road in town of Oregon. Plan Commission staff recommendation is to approve the certified survey map. You get a motion and a second on this one? Jerry? Derek? Any questions? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. We did 13. Oh my, we're at the end.
So moved.
14. 14 is new business, none. 15, future agenda items. Anybody? Derek?
Yes, I'd just like to ask, I had mentioned earlier possibility of moving forward with the sustainability committees and the transportation committees. Is that something we want to maybe get on a little bit faster track here? Maybe within the next coming agenda or two? depending
Yeah.
on how
I'm
long it
planning
is.
on having it on the next agenda.
Yeah, you guys are,
You're on it, Martin, thank you.
both Mike and Amanda, you guys are probably close to being ready, you think?
I
With
think-
your language?
I think mine is.
Okay. Amanda, I know you were close too, okay?
Yeah, that's not a problem.
Okay, all right. 16, adjournment. All right, Jerry. We get a second? Amanda, okay.
Third.
We're adjourned. Thank you.